Officially call this Manvel City Council workshop to order here at 5 p.m. We will immediately be stepping into executive session. So Dan, whoever needs to join us for these, please invite them. We'll go ahead and read both of these off. The City Council will convene into executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071, consultation with attorney, and Texas Government Code Section 551.072, deliberation regarding real property, to discuss the following: Russell Street right-of-way abandonment, Bighorn Cantina. And City Council will convene into executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.087, deliberation regarding economic development negotiation, Texas Government Code Section 551.071, consultation with attorney, to discuss the following: memorandum of understanding with Mud 83 and Hillwood Enterprises LP. We will head into this executive session at 5 p.m. So council will reconvene from executive session here at 5:19 p.m., having taken no action. Let's go ahead, council, and we can work through some of the different agenda items. Council, do you guys have any comments or questions on anything for the consent agenda?
Are we going to finish up workshop session?
Oh, you are right. Thank you for catching that. I didn't catch that item right there. So appreciate that, Councilman Bonner. So we do have another item that is listed here on the workshop. We'll go ahead and talk through this one, and then with any remaining time, we will move on and discuss things with the agenda. So this is a discussion on public safety salary adjustments. Council, I'll introduce this one, and then Dan and Chief will turn it over to you guys. As council, you may be aware, the city of Houston recently made some adjustments to their base starting salary for law enforcement officers and officials within the city, and then of course lifted everyone else up. As you lift up the bottom, you have to lift up the others. The Houston Police Department now has a starting base salary for officers of $75,000 a year, and then their total compensation package is going to be is going to be $80,000 a year. And so with that, it started to cause ripple effects throughout the region. Harris County Sheriff's Office also saw increases. The city of, I believe it was Rosenberg, did a 10% increase. Other cities in our near vicinity are also discussing the same. Over the past few years, we here within the city of Manvel have offered an extremely competitive compensation package, not just base pay, but other benefits. And we've made a lot of progress in those areas, investing in our city employees, not just for our law enforcement and first responders, but for all city employees. And while this discussion is certainly focused on public safety, I know heading into the budget, this is going to be a big topic of conversation that we all care a lot about. And I wanted us to start this conversation tonight, knowing what's happening in the region. That way we can make sure that we show our police department that this is top of mind for us. But also it gives Dan and Chief an opportunity to talk about some of the things that they're working on, that they're discussing, be able to answer questions about, whether or not we need to do something proactively, whether or not it's better to wait and do this within the budget season, but if so, what are we talking about? Because while maybe our base salary might not be as high as others for first-year officers, a lot of the other aspects of a compensation package, which I know Chad can speak to, is very competitive and has positively impacted the quality of life for our law enforcement officials. The reason why you hear a lot of people talk about public safety salaries or police officer salaries is compared to most jobs, certainly compared to my job. When our police officers put on the uniform and they step out that door, they know that there's a high chance that they might not return home that evening. We just had one of our neighbor cities, the city of Angleton, that lost a 19-year veteran, Sergeant White, who was killed in the line of duty. And so please make sure to be praying for that community and all those that have been impacted. So this is very, very important. This is a very important topic. In council, what I'd like to do is have Dan and Chief speak a little bit to what they've been working on and kind of what they're strategizing about. We'll open it up to discussion and comments from council, and then we'll see where this goes from there. So Dan, Chief, we'll turn it over to you guys. I look forward to hearing what you have to share.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll start and then let Chief get into some of the details, but just sort of a broad brush. We tried to be proactive about this topic, and starting 2 years ago, we really started looking at salaries, not just of the police department, but of course the police department and salaries across the board, and also of course the compensation package, like you mentioned, looking at the benefits and everything. So we were able to make some, thanks to council, in our budget time, we were able to make some really positive improvements to the overall budget package and the compensation package. And so we've tried to be more proactive on that end. That was 2 years ago. This year that we're in right now, obviously the focus was the facilities themselves, between Public Works facility and the police station and those kind of things. So we've been working on the facility because we've got our officers where folks are wanting to transfer here from other places now instead of us losing them. And I was talking to Chad this morning about, sort of the rate of attrition, I guess, or lack thereof, and he can share some kind of fun stuff with that in a minute. But so this year's facilities. Then next year, now it's going to be literally bodies. So we've got good starting salaries. We've got a good overall package. Now we're going to have the facility. Now we're going to need some more bodies. So that's kind of the three-phased approach. But I don't know if Chad, do you want to go first and just kind of talk about what we talked about this morning, just kind of some numbers?
Sure. So again, we did a salary survey through an independent contractor back in 2002. And again, we identified many areas where we needed to increase the salary. Since that, again, council approved. We helped out with public safety. We helped out in a few other areas. Since then, since 2003, we haven't had a single employee that left saying that they were leaving due to salary or due to benefits. We've had leave for other opportunities, leave for family moving, things of that nature, just not fitting in, what have you. But salary and benefits has not been the cause for any of our individuals leaving. Now, I attribute that to the increase in salaries that happened in '23. Plus, during that time, we've been able to add next level urgent care as a supplemental insurance to the benefits, plus the adding of the dependent care coverage, covering our employees at 50% after 1 year of service and then 100% after 3 years of service. So the data points now are not pointing to where our employees are having a problem with salary or benefits. Again, the new hires I'm bringing in, when they're going through their onboarding, they are just thrilled to death as far as seeing what we are providing them. Dan?
Perfect. Thanks, Chad. Chief, you ready?
Don't even know where to start, really. I've been working for a few weeks now getting my budget presentation ready, and I really hadn't focused on salaries because we have actually moved our salary range to a competitive level. We've been there. We've worked on this for about 4 years. City manager and I meet with the president of the Police Association every February. We have discussions with them on the direction and what we need to look at and where we need to go. And we were all in agreement this year as the direction we were heading in. And that's basically what I've been working on for the past few weeks. As y'all all know, that in a month and a half, we're going to be moving into this big brand new facility. And it's one of those things that I'm requesting through the budget presentation, which y'all will see. I don't want to say too much right now, but there's going to be, you saw a lot of it in February when I did the update of the personnel that I'm going to be asking for. That's going to take a lot of money, and it's going to take a lot of money that we don't even know if we have yet. It's just one of those things we have to look at, when we get the funding back, and Rose and I and the city manager have that conversation. But along with that, we're also looking at equipment that we're going to need to provide for these officers that we're going to be asking for, because we're going to ask for additional officers as well. We have equipment that needs to be replaced. There's quite a bit of things that I'm going to be asking for that's going to cost a considerable amount of money. So after I learned of the announcement to bring this to council, Captain Day and I sat down and had a conversation, and we talked about it a little bit and in the direction that we could possibly look at, because I'm all for getting what the officers deserve and what they need. But I'm in a precarious spot right now because I also need to put people in the police station and get equipment. So without knowing what we're looking at monetarily wise, it's just one of those things that I really can't do right now. I haven't got that data yet. So speaking with Chris a little bit about it, or Captain Day, we spoke a little bit about it, and right now we feel that it's a little premature to start talking salary increases. The best thing we thought about doing was to wait until the budget season. Everybody's adopted their budgets. cities of our size, cities that we compete against. We don't compete against Houston. We don't compete against Harris County. Nobody wants to go to Houston or Harris County. I'm sorry, Chief Diaz can say what he wants to say about taking people. Nobody wants to go to work up in Houston. I'm sorry, that's none of my people do, I tell you that. But when we start looking at the salaries, we got to compare the salaries of cities of our size, people that we would lose to. I'm talking like the Webster, the League City, the Pearlands, some of those agencies. And so we talked about, if we can just kind of just pause for a minute, let all the cities come up with their budget request and see what they approve, and then we do another analysis, another salary survey to see where we stand with that. I know, I can tell you, one of our neighboring cities right now, their starting salary is more than ours, but we top out more than they do. And so that's what they're going against. Pearland, most of these cities we're talking about with the pay increases, they're civil service cities. So they had, this year's their year for their meet and confer and their discussions with their civil service, or the unions, I guess you could say, to talk about their salary increases. And that's where the Pearland's getting their salary increase. Albans, or they're proposing, most of them are all civil service cities. So do I want to look at a salary increase? Absolutely. But I think right now it might be just a little premature to start talking about it. Let's see what happens, and then let's find a salary survey with cities comparable to ours that we actually compete against. And then we can just go from there with it. Those are my thoughts, but ultimately it's up to council what y'all want to do, and if y'all direct us in that direction, then we'll look at it and we'll go in that direction. But I would strongly wait until after June 16th when I present my budget proposal to start looking at this in a little bit deeper.
Well, Chief, thank you for that overview, Chad, as well. I think it's good for the public to hear that we take this matter seriously. I loved hearing you say, Chief, that you want to make sure that our officers get paid what they deserve to get paid, and that's been a reoccurring theme over the past few years, and I appreciate your efforts with that. And meeting with Captain Day and Dan, as you had mentioned, you guys work as a team to continually evaluate this. You're spot on, Chief, with the salary survey. I think, doing it every 3-4 years, making sure that we update that is going to be key, using that data to drive us for the future. And it's always the balance between, we need bodies, but we also want to keep who we have, and what's the trade-off there. One question that I have, and we'll open it up to council, and if you guys don't have this number right now, that's fine. Would love to be able to see it. Regardless of what the base pay is, what would you guys say? Is there a rough estimate for the quantitative value of the other benefits that we provide, such as take-home vehicle, the next level, the insurance for the dependents, the retirement coverage afterwards until they get to 65? Because we'll just say base salary is $65,000. I mean, I know if my insurance was covered for my family, that's about $1,000. That's an additional $12,000 a year that would be covered by the city, which would be huge, which would put my total compensation up to $77,000. So do we know what that number is for all of these peripherals? I mean, Rosie, I don't know if you have that we could kind of give out roughly, because when we talk about, we can't just look at pay, we have to look at total compensation. It's a total package. Do we know what that is, staff?
Not including the take-home vehicle, the fringe benefits vary between 40 to 60% depending on what the employee selects.
40 and 60% of what their base salary is.
Exactly.
They would get that. That's really good.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Rosie. I appreciate that.
Mayor, I can add.
We'll go Chief and then we'll go Chad. Go ahead, Chief.
I'm sorry. I can add that when we have these, on the recent interviews that we've had, we've actually was able to fill the 4 spots that we've had, and we were backfilling from the promotions that I'm going to talk about later on in the meeting. But when we sit down and we talk to our candidates about why do you want to come here, what is the reason, what draws you to Manvel, their biggest response are the benefits. So the benefits that we have put in place, when we start talking about the health care, we start talking about the health care and after the retirement, covering the family and all of that, that is a huge draw, and that is what's drawing them to us. Of course, we walk them outside and show them the big new building, and that piques their interest too. But
Well, they also want to work for a great chief, right?
well, I didn't want to say that, but I'm sure a couple of them out there will say that here in a minute. So, but no, that's a huge draw. Is we've worked, I guess, for the past 3 years now on the benefit package or the incentives, and we're still working on another one that we're going to present. But we're getting to the point to where these other cities can't compete with us. Our neighboring city, that-a-way, I mean, some of their officers are so upset right now because they just they cannot believe the incentives that we had when it comes to the health care and the benefits. When we start talking about next level, I mean, they don't even know about it until we tell them about it, and that's a huge, huge incentive to bring people here. So the things that we're doing with the incentives and the benefits is really doing good. The salary, some of these, we just brought in 2 officers from Victoria, and they got about $8 to $10 pay increase just coming from Victoria PD to us, and that's not even at the top level yet. So where we're at is really, we're at a good spot. But like you said, if we don't keep that momentum going, then we're going to fall behind like we were 5 years ago, and now we got to start the process all over again.
That's it. It allows us, Chief, to your point, to be more selective, to make sure
Correct.
that we bring in the right officers and we keep the right officers, which is huge. Chad, we'll go to you. I think you had a comment.
Just to echo what the chief was saying, as far as the benefit wise, we have employees that are saving anywhere to, excuse me, $350 to over $675 per paycheck on their benefits because of what we've been able to enact. The process of having next level urgent care to where they can go in along with their dependents and have no cost at their clinics for everything for preventive care to Cole's costs, broken bones, sprains, x-rays, blood draws. Again, when we have new folks starting and we explain all of those benefits, I'm seeing their heads spinning. They're just so thankful as far as what we're having here. So, again, yes, I think we do need to always take a look as far as with our salary. Dan and I talked again today as far as our next step as far as a complete salary survey that we'd be doing with our third party. But currently what I'm seeing is I'm just not seeing data points to where people are leaving because of this. People are coming because of what we're placing on benefits right now.
That's good. Thanks, Chad. We'll go Councilman Lands, and then we'll go Mayor Pro Tem next. Councilman Lands?
I just want to say that, Chief, I'm thrilled to hear what you've just said. I think collectively we worked hard over the past couple of years to get here. And it's been a collective effort of this council to do that, and we have more to do. But it's a good feeling to know that we're doing something positive and we're taking care of our police officers. And I'll do that to the last day I'm sitting here in this seat. Thank you.
I just wanted to say, just hearing this information from you guys, remembering when we were bringing this up, Mayor and I, and Chief, and Dan Johnson, one of the first things that we championed really, was our employees need to feel protected and valued. And coming from the business industry that we're in, if you don't value your people, they're going to go somewhere else. And I believe wholeheartedly that what Councilman Land said is this has been a collective effort, and we are seeing the fruit of that. Does it sound nice to say, hey, let's go and look at salary increases, which I think this has been a good check. It's been a reality check for us that we're actually doing a good job. And what's most important to me is I remember talking about how many police officers had young families, how many of them were just giving birth to babies or had young school-age children who are constantly in need of going to the doctor. And the fact that this council came together along with staff to say we're going to prioritize our police officers, to me is phenomenal. And I love that, because to hear Chief say that nobody wants to go elsewhere, we have people coming here, is a 360 from 2 years ago. I mean, this is what we wanted, and we're here. Now, what I do want to caution is that we don't fall behind because we have to allocate for that. We're going to be discussing budgets here soon, but we need to keep in the forefront of our mind that, yes, we have a fancy building, but we have to be able to, the building is just a building. We've got to be able to support our people first so that we do draw top talent, like Mayor said. So I just want to congratulate all of us. I'm sure there's things that we still need a little bit of work to do when it comes to certain benefits, but to hear the 40 to 60% is massive. That's huge. So I just want to thank everybody for our hard work.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Any other comments or questions from council? Anything from staff? No? All right, well, thank you, everyone. Chief, we look forward. I think you're going to be the first presentation we get up here, so we're looking forward to it. So now I think, Councilman Bonner, I think we're good in the workshop. We can head over to the agenda now. Good catch, sir. I appreciate that. We have the consent agenda. Council, do you guys have any comments or questions about the consent agenda? Okay, hearing none. We have the regular agenda. We did discuss agenda item number 1 in executive session, so I think, council, we're good there. We do have Mr. Russ here with Hillwood. Russ, was there anything that you might want to say in relation to agenda item number 1? Saw that you signed the MOU, so you're thumbs up with it? Thumbs up with it. All right. Did you see that, Dan? The Longhorn gave the Aggie thumbs up. Just saying. All right. We for agenda item number 2, this I believe is in regards to the public hearing, so we'll hold off on that one for right now. Am I correct? Agenda item number 2 is related to the public hearing. Okay, so we'll hold on that one.
No, number 2 is the Russell abandonment.
Okay, so
The Bighorn Cantina.
Okay. Council, any comments or questions about agenda item number 2? This is the Russell Street abandonment for Bighorn Cantina.
Hang on.
Agenda item number 2.
I have notes.
I will hold for 1 second here.
Just go ahead.
All right, we'll go ahead. All right. Agenda item number 3 is the public hearing item. Is that correct? Okay, so we'll hold on that one then, because we will want to have the public hearing for the community there. Agenda item number 4, is this one, what is this one tied into here?
Mayor and Council, this is a variance request, and it's associated with the master plan for a community called Oakwood Trails. This is located to the east of Avellino and north of Manvel Town Center, PUD. The request is to allow a master plan to move forward with the variance related to the minimum access points required, because the way they are phasing the entire development, when they get to section 2, temporarily they may not be able to meet the minimum requirement of 3 access points until section 3 happens. And when section 3 happens, they'll have 3 access points, and when the last phase of it comes into play, the 4th access point would be triggered, and the access they have from Rodeo Palms Parkway can be counted as 2, so they'll meet all the requirements. So it's a reasonable ask. We looked into, reviewed it to see if there's any detrimental impact. We feel comfortable, and we are recommending approval, and you have a recommendation from the PD&Z also to approve.
Okay, thank you, Joes. Council, this is kind of for agenda item number 4 and number 5. Do you guys have any comments or questions about that? This is the Oakwood Master Plan, Oakwood Trails Master Plan. So I believe, I'll start us off here, Joes. I believe this is in the ETJ, correct?
That is correct.
So they will not be paying any city taxes, they'll not be voting, but because it's the ETJ, our development standards apply to them.
Correct. And subdivision ordinances.
Okay. Are they asking to escrow funds for any of the roads, or are they going to be building all the roads?
So that was an initial discussion, but they withdrew that request because there was a little bit of misunderstanding in terms of what they were trying to achieve from that request. So currently they're asking for only 2 variances. One is related to lot width measurements to align with how we do it in the city, just like we recently amended on our subdivision ordinance. And the other one is for the multiple access points. So those are the only two. There's no request for escrow. They're going to construct the road as they move along in phases.
Okay. So I see here that for, speaking of building the road, so they're going to have to do the boulevard entrance for Kirby. right there off of Rodeo Palms Parkway. Then they're going to have to do it closer to, there's a section right here where they have both sides of Kirby on the south side. But
Correct.
would they not also, because that detention reserve C, is that theirs?
That is theirs.
Would they not need to do half of Kirby for what borders detention reserve C?
So based on how our current major thoroughfare plan lays out Kirby, only a portion would be along their property ownership. But this will be reviewed in more detail when they submit a preliminary plat with all the surveys and meets and bounds and all of that. Okay. So if it is triggered, it would apply.
Okay,
so right now, as part of the master plan process, they're not trying to get out of any road dedication or road construction requirement.
Okay, sounds good. What is the lot size disbursement throughout this subdivision?
It would meet our minimum lot size requirements, which would be 60-foot wide and 6,300 square feet.
Okay, so every single lot is going to be 60 foot, or do we have some that are going to be bigger?
So the minimum is 60, so there would be some lots, and we'll get to know more in terms of how big it is, how bigger than 60 foot it is when we get into the preliminary plat stage. But usually when they submit a master plan of this size, there would be some lots that are more than 60 foot, but it wouldn't get into like your 70, 80 foot. It'll be just more than 60. Most of the lots would meet the minimum 60 foot wide requirement.
Okay. Then for the last question that I have is for the entry points. I want to make sure that we don't have another Charlotte situation like what we do for Lakeland. As I take a look at the different items that are here within the packet, I don't see the actual agreement in here to be able to confer that what the triggers are. So I'm wondering what are the actual triggers here? Can you point to that for us within the actual? I'm assuming we're approving a development agreement, or are we just approving the plan, or?
So there is a development agreement which basically allows them to have temporarily 2 access points when Section 2 is being considered in terms of construction. So like I said, the access points would go along with the phase in which it's being constructed. So like for the first phase, when they do Section 1, there would be 2 access points. When the second section is added, the number of lots would get to a point where a third access is required, but they wouldn't have a third access until Section 3 is constructed. That's when they get the third access. And once the rest of the phase is done, it would trigger a 4th access point, but you already have 2 based on the subdivision ordinance. The Kirby Road would be counted as 2 since it's a boulevard entrance. So I'm not 100% sure if I understood your question. So it would just follow the development process. So as sections are being built, there would be these access points. However, the first section would have 2 access points. When the third section comes in, that's when the development will have 3 access points.
Okay. So my question was.
It's in the development agreement. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure y'all had that one.
Yeah. So it's in agenda item number 4, not in number 5, associated with the master plan.
Let's see.
So for the master plan, we will have to bring it back to you at a different meeting with the resolution, because since we don't have a PUD or we don't have a development agreement associated with the master plan, right now we are recommending conditional approval of the master plan, and once those comments are addressed, at the next meeting there will be a resolution associated with the approval of the master plan, full approval of the master plan.
Okay, so for agenda item number 5, there would be a conditional approval.
Correct.
Is what staff's recommending.
Correct.
Okay. Agenda item number 4 has the development agreement that includes, I guess, the variance for the lot sizes, correct? Or what is this development agreement that I'm looking at?
And the access points.
And the access points.
That second whereas is where the different lots are specified in there. So they'll have 2 access points up to 124 platted lots, and then Section 3 is where the next one kicks in.
Okay. So if they decide, so as the way that this reads, whenever they start building Section 3, that's when it would automatically trigger that next access point. So what if they decide not to build Section 3 and they just skip to Section 4? Because this says Section 3, I mean, does it reference the exhibit?
So that's where the master plan and the resolution will kick in, because the master plan would include the phasing that is also shown here. They have their phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. We will capture all of that on the resolution when the master plan is fully approved, and you'll have it at the next meeting if all the conditions are addressed before that.
Okay. I just want to make sure there's not saying the developer would do this, but just, I guess, scarred from the
Absolutely.
past. I want to make sure there's no way that they can wiggle out of this by transferring ownership or saying, you know what, we're not calling it Section 3, we're now calling it Section A. And because the agreement references Section 3, they can now say, oh, no, it's Section A, so we don't have to build this other entry point, which allows them to do at least 2 additional lots, which is an additional about $100,000 for a developer.
Correct. And like our subdivision ordinance requires a phasing plan to be part of the a master plan whenever it goes beyond a certain acreage. So that'll be included. And unlike a lot of other subdivisions which we've approved with a master plan, this does not have a DA or a PUD associated with it, since like we discussed, it's in the ETJ. So when we have that resolution, we will capture all those requirements in the resolution.
Okay. Thank you, Jose. Councilman Lands?
Could you clarify something? I'm looking at the plat, the layout, and I see the first point of access, second point of access in Phase 1. What I'm a little confused with is the paragraph that's written in there on the first point of access saying this boulevard will serve as a 2-point of access when Section 3 is platted, meeting 4th point of access requirement. Why is that saying it will serve as access when Section 3 is platted? Why? I mean, we're saying that it's going to be part of Section 1.
Correct. So when Section 3 is platted, the total number of lots will get to a threshold which now would require 4 points of access. And the subdivision ordinance allows a boulevard entrance to be counted as 2 access points when you reach that 4 access point requirement. That's what that sentence means. So up until Section 3 is until Section 3 kicks in, your Kirby on Rodeo Palms would be counted as 1 access point. But when Section 3 and the other phases are kicked in, the total number of lots will get to a threshold where you not only require 3, you need 4 access points. But the ordinance allows a boulevard entry to be counted as 2 if a total of 4 or more is required.
Okay, well, it's splitting hairs, but it kind of sounds like that paragraph maybe should be down there with the 3rd point of access block, to me, because it looks like it's tying in the use of that first point of access with the 3rd section, but, okay, it's just, fair enough.
I know, we struggled to understand the request too. It took us for a while to understand what exactly the request is, especially given the complication that the southern section of Kirby, it doesn't connect all the way to Highway 6 right now. There are gaps, 2 gaps, which the timeline on that is unknown because the applicant doesn't control the property. And the way the ordinance reads, there are these thresholds, but then once it hits a 4 access point requirement, every boulevard entry could be counted as 2 access points. And that's what we've tried to explain.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman. Councilman Bonner?
So I'm kind of looking at the same map Councilman Lands was, but looking at the area between Section 2 and Section 3, that's just property that they're not purchasing?
Yeah, they do not own the property right now.
So they just did that to avoid Kirby Street then?
They don't own the property.
That's what I mean, though.
Yeah.
They bought on either side.
So it's going to be landlocked.
Well, I think, Dan, if you can elaborate on what's going on with that piece of land.
Yeah, actually, that's owned by Mud 42.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
So that is-
and the other
Yep,
piece down here.
it's kind of a checkerboard right in there. So they talked several times, and we encouraged them to keep talking about, maybe looking into some type of a land swap or something where it makes more sense, where Mud 47 is contiguous and Mud 42 is contiguous. They just haven't quite figured out.
I mean, the traffic flow without that piece of property looks terrible. Where if you're up here once Section 6 and 5 are built, instead of just going down Kirby, you're going to be going through neighborhoods. Oh, okay.
So that land, Councilman Bonner, was owned by Jerry Argovitz. And when Jerry passed away about a year and a half ago, it was entered into his trust. And so there's additional complexities that are involved because of that.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Councilman. Any other comments or questions, Council, for this agenda item? Mayor Pro Tem?
I'm sure it was discussed and somewhere in my brain of 50,000 words in the last minute. Kidding. We discussed the traffic impact on this. Did we? Or did I miss something? Was there a study or anything done about the impact of traffic here?
So the traffic impact analysis is something that we'll do a detailed analysis at the preliminary stage, preliminary plat stage. At this point, one wasn't included as part of the application, I believe, and more detailed study would be looked at that point when we have more details on how this is being developed.
Are we not looking into that because it's in the ETJ? Because had this been inside our
Either way, that's sort of the process. They want to make sure that this overall layout is okay. Because if y'all say no, well, then they have to go back to the drawing board, and so they would want their TIA to mirror whatever y'all approve.
So what is Joe's and Dan? What is the process? The master plan gets approved. Then what's the next step after that?
The next step would be they apply for a preliminary plat based on the master plan and the phasing plan. And as part of that, if it triggers a need for a traffic impact analysis and any other study that, like the drainage would be another thing that will be included, that would be made part of the application and it will be reviewed and it goes to the Planning, Development and Zoning Commission for their approval. And then once the preliminary plat is approved, then they go on to the final plat. And once the final plat is approved, they can get into the construction of infrastructure. Once the infrastructure is constructed and accepted, the plat is recorded, and then they would get building permits issued, not from the city, but they'll start constructing the homes.
So, to me, that sounds like what I hear from developers and people who want to build is that the system or the process, is this a place where it could maybe waste time instead of just saying, hey, this looks very similar to another project, we're going to require a impact traffic study, why don't we do that now? Instead of wasting time having the preliminary and then them coming before us and it's like, oh yeah, by the way, get this done.
Well, so number one of the reasons why we did not get into a traffic impact analysis at this stage was based on what was being proposed with the access points being
The 4 access points.
Yeah,
That's why.
That what we have, it doesn't approve that we need a detailed traffic impact analysis at this stage, number one. Number two, the subdivision process is heavily governed by the subdivision Texas Local Government Code, where we have to have certain things in place. And right now, the master plan requirement in our subdivision ordinance does not require a TIA, I believe. So that's why.
Okay.
So we can look into that to see if we need to make any change in the process to make an improvement. And usually when a master plan is submitted, if you remember, if you visualize some of the other master plans we have, it's only acreages and your access, the general layout of the access. It doesn't get into a whole lot of detail. Now, this master plan, as you're looking at it, it includes a lot of details. However, some of those details would be finalized at the preliminary plat stage, even though this master plan as it is being depicted will be approved. So if what we see on the preliminary plat, and we don't anticipate anything that would trigger a significant concern in terms of traffic, but if something of that sort comes into play, it'll be at the preliminary plat that we require.
And this is set for how many lots?
I believe the total number is 413.
413. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Pro
Thank you
Tem.
for that thorough explanation, so we can all learn together.
I think that the thing, Joe, is that you said that stood out to me is that with this being a master plan, because there's always a cost to developers or engineers or any applicant for a traffic impact analysis. And so they want to get some sort of feedback from council and staff first as to whether or not the general layout works before they spend the time and the money to do that. Same kind of concept with anybody that wants to do a general development plan or a PUD or anything like that. They want to know that the general layout works, then you start getting into the nitty gritty. So I appreciate that clarity, educational component for me there. Council, we're right up on time here. Are there any other comments or questions about this agenda item? If not, we'll just take a few-minute break, and then we'll come back and get started. All right, so we will end this workshop here at 5:59 PM. We'll take council if we want to reconvene here just at 6:05, and then we'll jump back into it. Evening, everyone. We will call this regular city council meeting to order here at 6:08 p.m. I hope that everybody had a great weekend and welcome back. We will first do the invocation, and tonight's invocation is going to be given to us by the birthday boy, Dan Johnson. Dan celebrated his birthday yesterday. I think, what, did you turn like 42 years old? Sure. Sounds like a good number right there. So Dan, if you could lead us in the invocation.
Certainly. Thank you, Mayor. Would you pray with me? Father God, we just thank you so much for all of your blessings that you bestow upon us in our community. Thank you for the fact that we live in a country where we can do what we're doing right now and bow our head and pray to you out loud, Lord. So we never want to take that for granted. We pray that you watch over our discussions tonight. Help us to make good decisions that honor you and your future children that will live here too, Lord. Again, we're just so thankful. We love you, and we pray that you watch over us and bless us tonight. It's in your son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Dan. Next, we have the inspirational reading from Councilman Opliger.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. So I got a couple little stories here. So I happened to catch something the other night on YouTube. It was about Steve Harvey, the comedian, and when he was at his crossroads moment in '91, when he had $35 in his pocket and he was living in his car. And I thought that was a pretty neat story because he was about ready to give up and didn't know which way to go. And a phone call, he got a phone call and an opportunity to take it, and he seized upon that, right? And you could watch that story, but one of my takeaway from it was that if you give up on your dream will be gone forever, and there's no getting it back. So, and I thought that was a really powerful thing, because the guy was really struggling, and he didn't give up on his dream, and he was prepared, and he seized upon the opportunity. But anyway, that's what I just ran across that. But really, and then my other one was from Rosa Parks, and she said, "You must never be fearful about what you're doing when it is right." Thank you.
That's good. Thank you, Councilman. Next, we have the pledge. If you can, please stand and join me in saying the pledges. First, to the U.S. flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And to the Texas flag, honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you, everyone. You may be seated. I say that at the end of saying the pledge each time, you may be seated, because one time my dad was performing a wedding, he was officiating it, and he forgot to tell everyone to be seated after the bride walked down, so we stand up during the entire ceremony. So it's just, it's a habit there in my life. Funny aside. Next, we have a few presentations. We first have a proclamation that I'm going to read out tonight for Juneteenth. Then we have some staff tenure recognition and public safety staffing update that Chief will have you do both of those items. So the proclamation tonight reads, whereas on June 19th, 1865, more than 2 years after President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, Union soldiers led by Major General Gordon Granger arrived in Galveston, Texas to enforce the freedom of all enslaved people in the state, officially ending slavery in Texas. And whereas this historic day, known as Juneteenth, marks the oldest nationally celebrated commemoration of the ending of slavery in the United States and represents a significant milestone in American history. And whereas Juneteenth is a time to reflect on the struggles and triumphs of African Americans throughout history, to celebrate freedom and equality, and to recommit ourselves to the ongoing pursuit of justice and unity. Whereas the city of Manvel recognizes the cultural, historical, and educational importance of Juneteenth and values the contributions that African Americans have made and continue to make to our community and our nation. And whereas in recognition of the significance of this day, the state of Texas was the first in the nation to declare Juneteenth a state holiday officially, and in 2021, it was designated a federal holiday. Now therefore, I, Dan Davis, by the virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Manvel, Texas, do hereby proclaim June 19th, 2025 as Juneteenth in the city of Manvel, Texas, and encourage all residents to honor this important day with respect, reflection, education, and community celebration. Thank you, everyone. Next, we have the staff tenure recognitions. And Chief, we will turn this one over to you.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I don't have a prepared speech like I normally do, so we're just going to wing this the best we can. We have two recognitions for tenure tonight. One of them could not be here tonight. April Beeler is one of our communication specialists. She is 5 years with the city and the department now. The other one is Nathan Peters, Sergeant Peters. He is 10 years with the city and police department on his second go-around. I think he had a few years before that, but we're only counting his second go-around because he left me once, and we're just not going to count that. So, Sergeant Peters, come on.
Get ready.
He spoke enough the last time.
He did, yeah. We're
We're not going to make him do it again this time. Some things we've been working on, if you remember back in February when I did my presentation, some things we were working on as far as our command staff and doing some realigning and putting people in the right places is what I like to call it. I made some moves here in the past few weeks. Of course, we all remember I promoted Rick Alvarado to the assistant chief's position back in April. Well, to fill his spot, I had to promote somebody else, and we just happened to have the perfect candidate for that, which was Mr. Edward Guzman. I promoted him to our CID captain, effective today.
You got to come up. You got to come up.
I told you it was going to happen.
It's gonna happen. Congratulations, Captain. Would you like to?
Thank you.
Could you say a few words for us?
Quick few words. I'm really proud to be here, thankful to see the teamwork not only between y'all, but the great leadership at the department that I'm serving with. So really happy, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Congratulations, Captain.
All right.
Two other positions that we brought into play are our watch commanders. It's our patrol lieutenants that will assist Captain Day in overseeing our patrol division. We promoted Sergeant Scott Karpowitz to patrol lieutenant and Sergeant Cameron McLean to patrol lieutenant.
Come on forward. Come on forward. So, Chief, is there a height requirement in order to be in this position?
That's all you, man. That's the intimidation.
No, just real quick, couple shout outs. First of all, City Council, thank you. Without your support and the city's support, we wouldn't have these opportunities. Second of all, Chief, thank you. You're the man who gave me my job. Thankful for it. I appreciate it. Most of all, to my family back here, my wife, son, daughter, brother, sister-in-law, and mom. Man, through nights, rotations, working holidays, a lot of times police works hard on us, but hard on the family. So, man, especially my wife, Alyssa, has been a trooper. So, without her support, wouldn't be able to be here, wouldn't have the success that I've had. And I know with her, man, I can keep making strides forward. So quick shout out to my family real quick. So.
I don't even know how to counter with that. I'd like to thank Mayor, Council, especially Chief, for allowing me this opportunity. As Chief said, he put the right people in the right positions. So I hope I make the city and also Chief proud. Thank y'all.
Congratulations.
One more move that I made actually fell into my lap, and I ran with it and couldn't pass it up. Several weeks back, I don't know exactly, it was back in April, I received an email from somebody who pretty much said, I heard you're looking for an emergency management coordinator. And I just basically said, well, as a matter of fact, we're going to be. And after that, the conversation started, and spoke with the city manager about it, spoke with Chad, and Of course, Rosie, every time I go to Rosie, she puts her head in her palms of her hand. So we were able to make this happen, and I was able to hire we were able to bring aboard our emergency management coordinator. I'm going to mess her last name up, so I'm not going to say it. So I'm just going to call her Jamie P. Jamie?
Hey, Mayor, Council, Directors, thank you so much for this opportunity to be here with the City of Manvel. I take it with so much pride and so much passion that he hired me right at hurricane season. Thank you. So I've hit the ground running. I've been here 4 weeks as of today. Chief advised that you would like a little bit of a hurricane update. So I'll just kind of highlight a few things, be short, sweet. I've started with communications immediately. I don't know if you guys know, but I send out weather emails if something major is happening with the major storm that come up. We were able to send out emergency notifications to all the crews. So that way we can make sure our staff stays safe. With that, we've continued. I'm going to start implementing to bring resiliency to the community, which is, as you know, when a disaster happens, without resiliency, the economic devastation that a community can experience it's a downroll. It's a cycle, right? So there is a free program. It's called Before, During, and After for small businesses that I'll be working on rolling out. I've got 6 public relations public events already scheduled and heading out for that to talk about resiliency and mitigation within the community and being prepared. I want to make sure that everybody understands that preparedness is everybody, and it doesn't take a lot of money. You can do it something simple, and that we're prepared for the hurricane season that comes up. The STEER list, I don't know if you guys know what the STEER list is. The STEER list is vulnerable population or anybody that is unable to evacuate themselves during the hurricane. We've started managing the STEER list. We're at 27 and it continues to grow. You'll see that coming out. If you're on social media, please like the Office of Emergency Management social media page. We've got a lot of posts going on there, a lot of stuff, just trying to get the word out and getting our emergency notifications. June 14th, there will be the Hurricane Expo at Brazoria County. I sit on the committee for that, so I'll be starting messaging to get that out. I hope to see some amazing community members from Manvel there. I'll be at the front, so I'm hoping to meet some people and some citizens. Staff training, I'm at the staff meeting tomorrow. We're going to start training, working on positions and hurricane preparedness for the staff and how we're going to do the EOC.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jamie. We're excited to have you. I know it's a big sigh of relief for Chief. He did a great job during Hurricane Beryl, but I know having you in that position is going to take it to the next level. So welcome to the team.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Thanks, Chief.
I can honestly say that is probably one of the best deals I've had in a long time. I have several cities that from the south of us and to the far west. Chief Noah Diaz ain't got nothing on me on stealing people. So we'll just leave it at that. That's all I have for you. Thank you, Chief.
I got a question. Could you just tell me, I'm just curious, how many captains and lieutenants and sergeants do we have? Can you figure that out?
Yes, I have, of course, it's myself, the assistant chief. I have 3 captains that are over each one of the divisions, which is the criminal investigation, patrol, and our administrative captain, which is Captain McLean. I have 4 patrol sergeants, 4 patrol corporals, and I have 2 patrol lieutenants now that will help Captain Day oversee the patrol division. Sure. This basically sets up, since we talk about trees a lot, this is my analogy. I just built the root structure. Now it's time for the tree to grow. So and that's what we're looking at, and that's the direction we're going right now.
Cool. Thank you, sir.
Awesome. Thank you, Chief. Are we wanting to capture some photos? Okay. I'll let you orchestrate that, Chief. I think you're going to have to stand up here for some photos. Who are you wanting for the photos?
Sergeant Peter.
All right, so everybody that spoke, you're going to have to come back up here for a photo now.
And Sergeant Peter.
And Sergeant Peters. Jamie, you got to come up too. Jamie.
What can I call them? They're like so big.
I know, they're tall.
I walked out there and they were all towering.
Great work. Thank you, everyone. So next, we will have the staff presentation on the public hearing item. So we'll let staff present this, and then I'll read out the public hearing, and we will then open it up to anybody that wishes to speak on the subject of the public hearing. So, Joes, if you could give us an overview here.
Mayor and Council, this is a request to rezone an approximate 35.3 acre tract of land. It's located at 9825 Masters Road. It includes two parcels based on the Brazoria County Appraisal District's PID numbers. It's situated to the west of Chocolate Bayou and at the northeast corner of the intersection of Cumulus Drive and Masters Road. So this has with frontage on Cumulus Road. If you all remember, this is the property that's known as the Sundance Horse Ranch, and the EHRA group, on behalf of the property owner, is requesting for this rezoning. The property hasn't been purchased, and the request for the rezoning is to allow this to be included in the Meridiana development, to be allowed based on the designation of garden homes, which is a designation that allows for uses along the periphery of the overall Meridiana development. One of the recent one that was approved was the section along Cruiser Road. It'll be similar to that. And this designation allows for single-family homes that are 50 foot wide with 6,300 square feet, which is like the minimum area requirement in our single-family residential. But then the lot width, there's allowance to go down to 50 foot. So the property is currently zoned open single family, and the request is to be rezoned to a PUD so that it can be included in the Meridiana development, the Meridiana PUD ordinance. Now, the applicant has submitted a traffic memo the day this was considered by the Planning Development and Zoning Commission. At the Planning Development and Zoning Commission, the motion to approve failed, so they are not recommending a positive recommendation to approve. However, staff is recommending approval based on all the material that was provided. A master plan amendment was also submitted. However, it was withdrawn by the applicant pending a decision on this request, and that shall be brought to you at another agenda once PD&Z makes a recommendation on that. The traffic memo was reviewed by staff, and we do not see any significant issues with what was submitted. The reason for PD&Z's motion failing, based on the discussion that they had on the agenda, was a traffic study was not provided as part of this application, and what the applicant submitted was early, like the same day when we had the meeting, when staff did not have enough time to review the whole thing. But since then, staff has reviewed it. Based on everything that we are looking into, the request meets the overall provisions of the PUD that was previously approved. It meets the goals of the comprehensive master plan that we currently have. And based on all of that, staff is recommending approval. And I want to highlight, make sure you all understand again that the Planning Development and Zoning Commission's motion to approve failed with a vote of 2-3.
Great. Thank you, Joes. We now have the public hearing. I will read this item out and then open it up to anybody that wishes to speak on the subject of the public hearing. So the public hearing reads, to hear input from the public regarding a proposed ordinance 2025-0-18 of the City of Manvel, Texas, amending the zoning classification of 35.3 acres of land generally located at 9825 South Masters Road, PIDs 537539. And 619349, situated west of Chocolate Bayou and at the northeast corner of the intersection of Cumulus Drive and Masters Road, from open single-family residential district to planned unit development district for inclusion in the Meridiana planned unit development, providing for the amendment of the city's official zoning map, providing for severability, and providing a penalty in amount not to exceed $2,000 for each day of violation of any provision hereof. We will open up this public hearing at 6:28 p.m. I'll do the first call for anybody that is wishing to speak on the subject of this public hearing, and we have Ms. Marianne Atkinson. Marianne, if you could just state your name and address for the record, and the floor is yours.
Yes, sir. Hello, my name is Marianne Atkinson. I live at 7425 Jordan Road in Manvel. I'm here to oppose this. I live kind of in that area. You have to pass my place to get it during the school year. I know there's a traffic study now, but it's horrible. people don't stop at the stop sign, then you're going to add 140 homes and times that possibly by 2 more cars on the road. It is very gruesome. It's very concerning, and I just wish you'd really take a look at it and think about how many people are going to be crammed into that one little area. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. We will do the second call for anybody wishing to speak on the subject of this public hearing. We have Donald next. Donald, if you could state your name and address for the record, and then the floor is yours.
Donald Atkinson, 7425 Jordan Road. I'm opposed to it. At the PD&Z meeting and stuff, they said there wasn't a traffic study needed because of the general one that was done when Ranian was first done. I go past that intersection every day, both ways. I have more traffic on Masters Road than I do at Meridiana Parkway, which they said everybody would be going back out on Meridiana Parkway. But considering the entrance is right on Masters, I don't see them driving through the neighborhood down Cumulus to go back to Meridiana to come out. It is going to be a big impact on that road, which needs to be repaired anyhow. Putting more vehicles on it's just going to cause more problems. And really wish y'all would at least consider that and make them do a true traffic analysis this day and time, not when it was first done 5-6 years ago. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Donald. We will now do the third call for anybody wishing to speak on the subject of this public hearing. Hearing no one else, we will close this public hearing at 6:30 p.m. Next, we will go to public comments, and Marianne, looks like you're going to be coming right back up. So, Marianne, you already previously stated your name and address for the record, but this one we do set a time limit on for 3 minutes, so the floor is yours.
I won't need all that. I just want to say, which I've told the mayor at our town hall meeting a couple Saturdays ago, I don't use 288 that much for the same reason I don't like people driving on my road. But when I do get on 288 and I drive north and I see the water tower and it says Manvel with the date, it actually makes me smile. No matter what kind of day I'm having, it's even better than a sign. And y'all know I wanted a sign. But that water tower, it's beautiful. It's nice and it's straight to the point. It's Manvel. And it's just, like I said, it makes me smile. Second thing is y'all really need to think about doing the Citizens Patrol Academy that the police department is putting on, whether you've had one before or at another location or another city. Please, please consider doing that. It would mean the world to see that our officers see you guys there too. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. Tammy, no one else has signed up to speak? Okay. We will now move on to the city manager update portion of the agenda. Birthday boy?
Thank you, Mayor. Very short update tonight. Just one, I wanted to let you know that the first meeting, the inaugural meeting of the Facility Naming Committee is tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. So I believe our very own Councilman Oplinger is part of that group. So some of the things that they'll be looking at, hopefully, probably not all in one meeting, but start talking about possible names for the new police station, of course, the Public Works facility, the water tower that Marianne just talked about, our City Hall Park, those kind of things. So they don't necessarily have to be named after somebody, but they need to have a name that we all refer to them and that has the sign out in front and all that kind of good stuff. So looking forward to that tomorrow. And then hopefully you saw my email. It is budget season, and the charter, our adopted charter says that we need to have a sort of a draft rough budget outline to you by August 1st, which will be here very, very soon. So, and in anticipation of that, we've got, just like we've done for the last 2 years, each director is working on a presentation to give to you so that, especially for our newer council members, to help them understand what our departments do, what each one of them do. There's some departments, like public safety, that handles not only police, but the fire marshal and code enforcement, animal control. There are a lot of things, a lot of components to that. And so each one of our directors will have some time to kind of tell you a little bit about their departments, but then also talk to you about any anticipated needs, whether it be equipment or staff or whatnot. So the schedule right now, just to sort of read it into the record, is what we're looking for is June 16th, which is the next regular council meeting, would be the Public Safety Department. Then the very next Monday after that, which is a normal PD&Z meeting, we would have Development Services come in the hour before the PD&Z actually starts. And I know a couple of y'all have already mentioned that you might not be able to make that meeting. We do still have a quorum, so far as I know, for the June 23rd meeting. Then the next one, so June 30th would be the following Monday after that. Joe's and I talk about this a lot, and Tammy too, and Bobby, because we're up here pretty much every Monday night, whether it be for council or PD&Z. So if at all possible, we try and honor and cherish those fifth Mondays when they come along. So trying not to have a meeting on June 30th if possible. So we'd pick back up with the next department would be July 7th, a regular city council meeting. That'd be Public Works. And then the following Monday would be administration and legal. And that would be an hour before the normal PD&Z meeting on July 14th. And then finally, July 21st would be Chad and Rosie talking about personnel and finance. And so that gives us one more week if we needed it before that August 1st deadline. Now, that's not the full, with a bow on it budget, but it is a pretty strong outline so that we know where we're heading from August until the end of September when it's actually due. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Great. Thank you, Dan. Council, we did discuss the consent agenda during the workshop. So do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion. Consent agenda.
We have a motion from the Mayor Pro Tem. Do I have a second? We have a second from Councilman Bonner. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously 7-0. We'll now move on to the regular agenda as there were no items removed from the consent agenda. Agenda item number 1 is consideration and possible action to approve a memorandum of understanding between the City of Manvel, Brazoria County Municipal Utility District number 83 and Hillwood Enterprises LP. We discussed this during executive session where no action was taken. We then got the Aggie thumbs up from Mr. Russ Bynum with Hillwood during the workshop that he was good with the memorandum of understanding. Council, any comments or questions regarding this agenda item? Hearing none, do we have a motion for this agenda item?
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion to approve from the Mayor Pro Tem. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second from Councilman Hudson. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously 7-0. We can all breathe a sigh of relief. What was that, 3 years? 3 years in the making? Right about that? All right. Well, staff, Dan, Bobby, Joe's,
really good?
Russ,
It's really
Shima. I just got to sign it, and then it's done. So all the power's in my hand now. I'm joking. I have to sign it. When council approves it, I have to sign it. We'll get that signed, and Tammy, you'll be able to get over a copy to them. So thank you guys so much. Drive home safe. Agenda item number 2. This is consideration and possible action to approve the second and final reading of ordinance 2025-0-13. We discussed this within executive session. Council took no action in executive session. We did discuss this very briefly in the workshop. Council, any comments or questions regarding this agenda item? I believe Mr. Allen's here. Mr. Allen, you good? All right, we got another Aggie thumbs up there, so we're good to go. Council, do I have, I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve this agenda item. Do I have a second?
Mayor, can I just add one thing on the record, that the compensation will be the items agreed to by the city and the applicant laid out in a letter from the city manager?
Yes, so I'll make a motion to approve as stated by Bobby, our city attorney. Do I have a second for that agenda item? We have a second from Councilman Bonner. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously 7-0. Thank you, Bobby, for calling that out. Appreciate it. Alan, there we go. Alan, hopefully we'll see an announcement on social media from them very soon, and we can advertise it and margaritas, right? Margaritas. All right, thank you, everyone.
My middle name, by the way.
Agenda item number 3. This is consideration and possible action to approve the first of 2 readings of ordinance 2025-0-18. We had a staff presentation during the public hearing. Do we have anyone here for the applicant that would like to present to council? Yes, please come forward if you could state your name for us.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Jeff Boutte. I'm a senior planner with EHRA. I'm really here mainly for questions and also just to speak very briefly to the traffic impact analysis that was submitted to staff within the last week. Traffic counts were collected on May 1st of this year. So we are dealing with new traffic counts that take into account the traffic of the existing homes on Cumulus Drive at this point. And the traffic impact analysis, although it wasn't ready, at the PD&Z meeting, was submitted, I believe, the day of, or as Joe said, it's been reviewed by staff since then. And the impact analysis does show that the levels of service for the intersections and the drives adjacent and that would be serving this development do not go down in grade. So there's really no negative impact to the traffic. Also, a point of clarification, the preliminary plat that we have submitted is for 104 homes, so just not 140. And also, it was also looked at in the traffic impact analysis whether a left turn lane would be needed at Masters, and it was per the recommended guidelines for the engineering standards that were used. It is not needed. So we don't anticipate any increased traffic at this time that would push any of the levels of service for these roads worse than they are now. And with that, we're here to answer any questions that some of you may have.
Okay, sounds good. So we'll open it up to council comments and questions. We'll start with our Mayor Pro Tem. I'll go next, and then we'll see who else on council. So.
You sure you want me to go first?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Okie dokie. Okay, so I need to clarify something. In relation to the map, how far or close is this to where Akery Lake is going to be? That's probably a question for
Sure. They're just
staff.
a little south of Akery Lake. So
Just a
Akery Lake
little
is
south.
right at Jordan. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that traffic impact study, were you guys aware that what's going on with Akery Lake?
I'm not aware of
Okay.
what Akery Lake is.
So we're going to be digging that, and we just basically agreed to have it dug, and we're going to have roughly 400 trucks coming from there down to Highway 6 to dig that. So that was something that came to my mind when we had that presentation a few weeks ago. And so I understand that this traffic study that you guys submitted most likely looks at the 104 homes that you guys are looking at to do here. So I would just highly recommend that we throw that into consideration there. Not that it has anything to do with you guys developing there or anything like that. However, that is something that is coming, and it's going to impact the people that live there and also traffic that comes onto Highway 6 and that uses Masters Road as well as Highway 6. But hang on, this is Masters Road, right? Not McCoy. Okay, so it's way over here. So we're talking Masters Road in Cumulus, not McCoy, where Akery Lake is, for Meridiana, but they're extending back over here, right?
Actually, so Akery Lake goes from Masters to Meridiana Parkway or McCoy. It goes virtually that whole width.
So will the trucks be going that way as well?
The
Do we
trucks,
know?
most likely what
Their
we talked
outlet?
about, the trucks will probably be leaving out on Jordan and going immediately to the west, the northwest, and then hitting Meridiana Parkway and then come out to Highway 6.
Okay.
So these vehicles, whether they get out on using Cumulus, right,
Cumulus, yes.
to Masters, or using Cumulus to go back to Meridiana Parkway, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, it's a parallel of Jordan, I guess, in a way, right? Cumulus is.
I'm not familiar with which street Jordan is, but I can say that with the traffic impact analysis, so we did take counts on May 1st, and I'm not a traffic engineer, I'm just a planner.
Thank
But we took counts on the 1st, and then those counts, there's a growth applied just to assume that over the next year there'll be at least a 3% increase in traffic. So the counts that are projected forward where we get these levels of service do take into account additional traffic that may be building in the area, regardless of the development that we're bringing. So we do take into account some new traffic. And then also, what was you'd ask about one of the other north-south streets?
It was Cumulus, and it was Jordan, and it was Meridiana.
Oh, yeah, and what we did too is we analyzed the traffic patterns, basically say, how's the traffic flowing now? And then we assume that the new traffic that's coming is going to be taking similar traffic patterns.
Okay.
So some of the traffic is going up to Meridiana and then some going down to Masters.
Okay. And then that was really what I had on the top of my mind. I have some other notes, but that was something that just came to my mind because of that huge concern, obviously. Not just with them here, but traffic in general in that area. And then just hearing right now from Mary Atkinson and Mr. Donald, I mean, this is a huge concern to them and the people who live there. Have you guys talked to any of the residents in the surrounding areas about that?
I am not aware if we've talked to residents about additional traffic.
Okay, or anybody else and how they see this new development coming in the area? No? Okay.
Not aware of, no.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So kind of a few questions here. I'm glad to hear that the traffic study was done on May 1st, which was to a point that Mary Ann said, definitely the school traffic is a concern. So I had to look to see, okay, was this a weekend? Was it a weekday? Was it a Thursday? School was still in session. So I'm glad to see that, and I wish that it could have been provided a little bit more ahead of time to PD&Z. So if we can make note for the future to have that would help them be able to make those decisions. I looked at the traffic analysis myself, and while there will be a slight uptick on Masters, a lot of it will go to Meridiana Parkway based on that analysis. As I understand it, there's also going to be a dedication of right-of-way along Masters. Is that correct? Because one of the biggest challenges that we'll have in the future is if the city ever wants to expand Masters, there's not the right-of-way for it right now. And that's going to be a big hurdle to overcome. So with this being developed, how much additional land are you guys projecting to dedicate along the side of Masters there?
Let me see. Michael, come on.
Everyone, Michael Terzillo with EHRA. I'm also a planner with the firm. We do have dedication on Masters Road based on the preliminary plat we've submitted. I don't have the actual acres number, but there is right-of-way dedication.
Okay, because that portion of the road's in the county, so we wouldn't have jurisdiction over that, but
Right.
knowing that the right-of-way is being dedicated is a big piece for us.
So looking at the information we have, it's about 20 feet wide portion that is being dedicated, and acreage-wise, it would be about half an acre, 0.4 acres. And while we are on the topic of traffic, I want to just add a clarification that the access to this portion will not be from Masters. The access would be from Cumulus. They're not allowed an access from Masters. However, there are surrounding areas along the properties that surround this property is already zoned PUD for Meridiana, and further down there is a section where there will be a new access into Meridiana based on the existing PUD allowances. Just wanted to add that to the information.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah, I see 2 points of access. One is a boulevarded entrance. So I see that. Okay. So appreciate the traffic stuff. Looking at drainage now, because that was another point that PD&Z brought up. It looks like you guys, Pond U2 is going to be 7.6 acres. How much capacity is that going to have? Because one of the benefits of a development happening on this land is the improvement for drainage along the bayou, some cleaning up of the bayou, which is going to have further downstream positive impacts. How much capacity is going to be in U2? Not the band, but the pond.
As far as capacity, that's going to be something I'd have to get with our engineering team to figure out. But as far as I can tell you, a drainage impact analysis has been submitted to the drainage district.
Okay. Dan, what are our thoughts there? Because we've always talked about with the area that we affectionately call no man's land, which is off of Hanselman, if we can get land upstream that can hold excess capacity for us, it would help downstream. This is right along the bayou, because you got Pond W. It looks like that's 14.2 acres right along the bayou. Then you've got Pond U2. How much capacity, could we get excess capacity there to help us out?
It's certainly possible, Mayor. It's in the right spot. You know, like you said, it's immediately upstream of what goes through right behind Gates Loop, that part of Chocolate. They've got the wastewater treatment plant pretty much takes up as far as it can go towards the bayou. So it would have to be the property that's, you know, obviously that was is Dorothy's south of the plant.
Okay, well, if we can take a look at that as we go through the preliminary plat, and I think there's an opportunity to have discussions with the developer.
Absolutely.
To see about that capacity, because that'd be a huge win-win. The only comment that I'll have, Council, and then I see we'll go Councilman Bonner next, and then Councilman Lands, is Dorothy wants to sell this land. You know, she's wanted to sell it, and it's going to ultimately be sold to a developer. Personally, I would rather have the development be within the PUD and within Meridiana that has strict guidelines and oversight than having somebody like Joe Watson or somebody like a Servell that's going to come in and is going to cut corners and cause issues. So it depends on what type of quality development do we want to see here, because it's going to be sold to a developer, and the developer is going to come in and they're going to develop. And so what type of development do we want to see in Meridiana is a quality development from all that I can tell. So that's where my thoughts go. I think the traffic impact analysis definitely helps, because I know that was a big concern by PD&Z there. Joe's?
Mayor and Council, since drainage was mentioned, I also wanted to point out that out of this 35-ish acre tract, only 29 acres would go to the park and the open spaces and the residential lot. Remaining is for detention and drainage-related purposes.
Okay, thank you, Joe's. Councilman Bonner?
Yeah, if I remember right, didn't we also get a dedicated right-of-way to Chocolate Bayou here?
The drainage easement that goes through Dorothy's property? Yes, sir.
So, you know, I know that's upstream of Chocolate Bayou, but it possibly could give us access downstream too if we can get in. We need a point of access just to find out what we have. There's some places there that we really can't even get to right now because we can't get access. So this kind of at least opens up a door to where maybe it's navigable downstream from there with some type of barge or something that we could do some work on drainage downstream of this property. So I think that's a plus. I wonder right now, Cumulus, am I saying that right? Cumulus from Masters, that is what, 2 lanes right now until it gets down a little further?
I believe so. I think it's just 2 lanes.
And so part of this would be to develop the other 2 lanes?
Yes. I think
Okay.
so.
So there where it connects to Masters, y'all are saying?
One second. I have to see Dan. I think see you for
Is that-
your eyebrows.
That would be great, but I don't think you want to commit to that.
Okay.
We'll take it, but
Got it.
Because I think the way that it's built right now is what it's going to stay as. Is that correct?
Correct, and I think it's
yes.
classified
Sorry, I
as,
misunderstood.
yeah, I think it was classified as a residential collector street.
Okay, one
So it
lane
has-
going one way, one lane going another way, and that's it. Sidewalks on both sides.
But it has enough width to take care of the traffic.
Okay.
So there where it connects at Masters is also where Hanselman comes in. And I'm wondering about, has there been any thought during preliminary talks about, I really like the left-hand turn lane right there, because to me, that's kind of a little bit of a choke point. Once you start having, I know your traffic studies are saying most everybody probably is going to go the other direction. I don't know about that. Depends on where they're going. So I worry that right in there, that little section, if we might need some upgrades right there just to handle some of that choke.
Are you saying, Councilman, a left-hand turn lane to go north on Masters?
Coming out from there.
Wouldn't it be east?
On Cumulus?
Yes, back towards town.
Back towards.
Okay, so and left turn lane coming out of Cumulus to then start heading north on Masters.
Right, because you're going to have traffic coming. I mean, I've driven in the evening. There's a lot of traffic in the evening time that's turning on to Hanselman. Probably most of the traffic coming down that road is turning on Hanselman. So I just wonder about choke points to get out. I don't know how many come out in the morning and go the other direction. I'm just wondering about that area right there.
What was specifically listed in the study was the need for an eastbound turn lane at the intersection of Masters Road and Cumulus. So that would be presumed coming down south and taking a left off of Cumulus onto Masters. And that the traffic study at the worst peak hour, which would be in the morning, did not warrant it based on the engineering standards.
So I guess a question to follow up on Councilman Bonner's point, city staff. Would that be something if council wanted to that we could require as a condition, or does a traffic study have to warrant that to require that?
Usually the zoning is either approved or not approved. So even if you put a condition, we may have to come bring it back to you. But as I mentioned, we do have an amendment to the general development plan that needs to be approved. I don't know if it would be a good opportunity to capture at that point, but by then this will be either approved or we move forward. So I guess, Rose, what I'm saying is generally rezoning is either approved or denied or tabled.
Well, let me ask this, though. Is there enough right-of-way there if at some point in time it's deemed that traffic goes up? Is there enough to put it in at that time? Or do we really have to capture it now if we ever want it?
What's the width of a collector?
So the zoning piece for the property is a decision to either allow a certain type of land use. Now, we've looked at the traffic study. Based on the standards that we have, it does say that, like the applicant said, the level of service doesn't go beyond the threshold that indicates a negative detrimental impact of this acreage that is being proposed to rezone. Now, if the council believes and feels that there is traffic-related concerns, we can maybe table the item and look further to investigate what needs to be done based on the traffic impact analysis and based on what staff can look into it. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that I don't know if there is a way to conditionally approve a rezoning. I'm not familiar with.
You're saying right now, what we're being asked is, do we want to see this land be developed as a subdivision?
Correct.
The specifics is going to come later, and that's going to come as a part of an update to the GDP, which governs all of Meridiana. And at that point, that's when we could put the condition for a left turn lane, but we can't do that as an attachment or a condition to zoning.
To the rezoning. And then also some of the construction of those infrastructure-related requirements would be based on our subdivision ordinances and other development standards, but those may not come to the council. Those would be administratively handled.
Yeah, my worries really doesn't have anything to do with can we put a subdivision or not in there. It's later down the line. And that's going to be a problem of anybody that builds there, not just this one, so.
Yeah, I can't say that
down the line.
In the general development plan, we did choose to defer that or withdraw until the zoning was resolved. In the general development plan that we did submit, though, that we have since deferred, at the intersection on the west side of Masters and Cumulus is a lift station, so unlikely that on the west side it could be expanded. But in our plans on the east side, there's a cul-de-sac bulb which comes right up to the right-of-way, and then there's a large amount of green space that on our plan so far look to be about at least two lots wide. And so there's green space that's on the east side of that intersection on the northeast side. And so if it becomes needed that a more additional right-of-way could be if additional right-of-way is needed, it could be acquired in that location or during the plating stages if it's warranted. There's room for it in the development plans.
Is that the area where you have the lift station that you're talking about?
It's the opposite side of the lift station.
Okay.
Yes, it's on the actual property that we're proposing to zone into the PUD. So there's not the backs of homes that's built right up against that intersection. There's some green space there.
Okay. Councilman Bonner, any other questions, sir?
Thank you.
Good questions. Councilman Lands?
This homes that are built on the other side of Cumulus, was this part of your development?
Yes.
What's the median price range of those homes that's already developed?
I don't know the median price range there.
Okay.
These are okay.
So why are y'all wanting to do garden homes on the other side of this Cumulus?
Well, the way the PUD is written is that new homes or new land that is brought into the PUD comes into the garden home district. And so the way the PUD was set up initially is that as land is added, it's brought into that garden home section. And so it has all of the requirements for the garden home section and the open space requirements and lot size requirements that are already in the PUD.
So you're saying that this request for this variance is not new? It's been planned since quite a while?
No, what I'm saying is that the way the PUD was written initially is that any additional land in the future, should it come into the development, is to be brought into the garden home district. So it's the way the administrative side of the PUD was written when it was initially adopted.
Joe, what's our definition of garden home?
I'm not 100% sure if that's accurate.
Oh, the initial adoption?
Initial adoption?
It may not have been with the initial adoption, but it's in the current PUD that.
So there was a recent amendment which allows for garden home, and garden home, just like the city's different zoning district, is a designation for land use within the Meridiana development. And the purpose is, I think the purpose was to allow for a little more intense uses on the periphery of the Meridiana PUD. And if I had it printed, so if I read the purpose of it, what it says is, the purpose, the garden homes category is intended for the development of detached single-family dwelling units and compatible uses on the perimeter of the overall project boundary. So if new acreage is added on the outside of the Meridiana development, garden home is a category that can be applied to those acreage. So that's how the PUD is amended. I think it was in 2023 when the PUD was amended to include that allowance, and that's how the example I mentioned, the section that is being developed on Cruiser, was allowed to include a garden home designation.
Can you give me a definition of garden home?
So in terms of residential lots, if that's what you're looking for, the minimum requirement for the garden home lot is 50 foot wide and 6,300 square feet. That's the minimum lot size for the garden home designation. And then it'll have to have an individual detached single family home. It's not those attached type of products.
Townhome, yeah.
Yeah, it has to be detached, but it's a slightly smaller lot compared to our minimum of 60 foot wide.
And the preliminary plat that we submitted is, the lots are 52 and a half feet by 120 to meet the 6,300 square foot threshold.
I just kind of wonder if there's going to be some unhappy residents knowing that their $400,000 home right across the street's a garden home. If they knew that when they bought into Meridiana back when. That's just a concern I have.
You know, although I can't speak to the price of the homes across the street, the lot size is fairly similar at 55 by 120. So the homes on the other side of Humulus Drive both sections are 55 by 120.
So two and a half feet wider.
And
basically.
with these, they're, like I said, 52 and a half.
The square footage of the houses are pretty close too, aren't they? That will be planned, if just based on experience?
Yeah, usually they are. Yeah.
And based on the plats, I can confirm that it's not significantly different in terms of lot size and also the products that will be proposed.
Councilman Lanz, any other comments or questions right now?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Councilman Bonner?
One quick question. What's the setback from the street?
The front setback is 20 feet, and the rear is 15, and the street side setback.
So we already had
is
this
10.
issue with this type homes in another proposed subdivision where 20 foot now puts you to where you can only get 2 cars in the driveway without blocking sidewalks and all these extra cars on the street. So now we have fire issues, getting fire trucks, ambulances, things like that down. And I believe we turned that portion of that request on somebody else down specifically for that setback.
Councilman, but these setbacks, the minimum requirements was already approved as part of the Meridiana PUD for any property that is designated garden home.
So nobody thought about emergency services back then when they were approved?
That's a tough question to answer. I'm pretty sure it was thought about. However, the allowance for that designation was.
I get that. You know, that's what this whole change is doing, is lowering the density. I understand that. But when you start letting things go into where now you're affecting emergency services, that worries me. And that's exactly what's going to happen when you've got how wide a street? 25 feet? Is that right? Is this a 25-foot street? And now you got cars on either side of it?
These are 50-foot rights-of-way, which usually can accommodate up to a 28-foot street. I can't.
And that's better.
Yeah, I can't speak directly at this time to the width of the street that's planned, but the right-of-way is 50 feet.
I would hope when it gets to that point, that that's a consideration when we look at the master plan approval, is thinking about emergency services getting in there. I know if I was buying one of those houses, I would worry about it.
And the way the PUD was amended, one of the considerations was an overall density for the development and the allowance for garden home to be based on an allowance that the overall density cannot increase a certain threshold. And that is something that will be reviewed when detailed layout for the section is provided at the preliminary plat stage.
You good, Councilman Bonner? Okay. Question, Joe's, for Valencia, what is the setback requirements, front setback in Valencia?
Depending on the product, it's varying. Since we have Russ here, I would depend on him to help us with that answer.
Yes, please.
So our PUD allows 60-foot right-of-way, and then our garage setbacks are at 25 feet. So it allows for, two large F-250 vehicles in the driveway without blocking the sidewalk.
Okay.
So that's what was approved.
Thank you, Russ. Joe's, what is the garage setback requirements within the Meridiana PUD?
So on this particular product, the allowance is for a minimum 20 feet setback. It doesn't get into garages specifically. I can read it out.
Could there be, and I know we're talking, tonight's just zoning, but when we look at updating the GDP, the master plan, could that be a condition on the update?
I would like Bobby to help me with that answer. I don't think typically the GDP captures the minimum requirements of the development standards. The development standards are already set in the PUD document. Unless we amend the PUD document, that cannot change, is what I think.
They should be in the PUD, but I frankly haven't looked at the Meridiana PUD in a long time, but they should be in there.
So the Meridiana PUD allowance for the garage is a minimum of, the front setback minimum is 20 feet for a garden home. And then there are some allowance for encroachment into the setback for the house, but it doesn't say that the garage has to be set back more than 20 feet. In fact, it says that where garages face directly onto a street with the garage door parallel to the street, the garage must meet the minimum setback requirement, which in this case is 20 feet.
Okay. And then, Joe's, do you know for Foxtail and Avellino what their garage setbacks are off the top of your head?
I think it's 25 feet.
25 feet, okay. Okay. Council, do you guys have any other questions for Jeff and Michael specifically? No? All right, gentlemen, you can take a seat now. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ms. Dorothy, I know this is your property. I want to give you, would you like to say anything because it is your property? You've served this city for a long time on PD&Z. Would you like to come up and say a few words?
All I'd like to say is there's been contracts on the property before, and nothing's been able to be done because it's really...
Ms. Dorothy, if you could step closer to the microphone.
Sorry. It's really set up, the way the drainage is through it, the way the drainage around it is, the way your roads are around it. It's really set up to be in Meridiana. So how it's developed after you annex it, and if I understood the process properly, they're just trying to get annexed tonight into that. And this is for this land. If I'm not to stay there, this is the best use for that land. How you deal with that after that in the PUD is entirely up to you. But I think some of that has already been decided. But everything put into this property, you already have drainage through the property. You already have, they'd improve your drainage, like I think it's been pointed out several times. So not annexing it in, I don't know if that really solves the problems that you're speaking of now. That just delays what I can do with it. And I'd like you not to delay that. But, you got to do what you got to do. So So I appreciate the discussion, but I think the discussion comes either at a later time for how you're going to deal with Meridiana's PUD, or I don't know if you can open that PUD up like Bobby says. So, thank you for that.
Thank you, Ms. Dorothy. Mayor Pro Tem, do you have a question?
Just a comment.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Dorothy, you're good.
Okay.
No, I did.
Oh, I'm sorry, my apologies.
Just a comment,
Yeah,
a
absolutely.
question. So are you completely done with Manvel? You're out of here? If we approve this tonight?
When you say I'm completely done with Manvel, no.
Okay.
Everything I had here, you're going to make me cry. Everything I've had here for 22 years won't go away. But will I not live here? I have lots of people that are willing to put me and all the dogs up, maybe not all the horses. And we're looking for another piece of property for my manager who very much wants to stay. So we are actively, but this piece of property isn't set up for that. It's really set up to be part of Meridiana. And could I have done something differently a long time ago? I don't know. Can't go back there. But am I done with Manvel? No, you're stuck with me.
Okay. And what about the horse ranch?
My manager is trying to start another place.
Okay.
We are actively seeking another location.
Here
And
locally?
actively seeking. We found something in Angleton that didn't work out. If I could find something in Manvel, she'd jump right on it. If you want to know how much, I'll be happy to talk with you later about that. But we are actively seeking where she could go because, yes, I have kids and boarders and, that I don't want to. But, the drainage and everything is set up is not for, I can't afford to do what needs to be done on that property. So the best thing for that property, can I sell that and help my manager do something else? I could. So we'd like to continue Sundance in a different name, different place. So
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Ms.
Thank you, Dorothy. Well, Council, I'm in support of, personally, I'll just state I'm in support of approving this, cautiously optimistic. I think there's still some discussions that need to have with Meridiana. I think the conversations to Councilman Bonner's point about, looking to do a garage setback of 25, while that might not necessarily be a requirement within the PUD, I think there's an opportunity as we look to approve the GDP to have a conversation with them about that specific piece, as well as excess capacity in Pond U2 to help with drainage in the area. So I'll just state that publicly, heeding the concerns and understanding the concerns of the community as well. Any other final comments and/or questions, Councilman Lance?
Okay, so we're just going to basically change the zoning of it from open single family to planned unit development. That's our main purpose tonight.
Yes, sir.
In doing so, we're not painting ourselves in the corner with this PUD on saying, okay, well, you did the PUD, now you got to do this and this and this, like the 20-foot setback and all. We're not painting ourselves in a corner. Am I understanding that? We still have a planning and platting we have to approve going forward.
David, if you're saying that there's no other opportunity for the city to address the setback for parking in front of the garage, once it's in the PUD, and I did look it up, it is in the PUD as far as the minimum setbacks, 20 foot is in the PUD for garden homes. So once we approve this in the PUD, we would have to try to negotiate something different. We wouldn't have any leverage, but we'd have to try to get with the developer and ask them to change that in the PUD from 20 to 25 foot or whatever council wanted. So if you're saying if you vote this and bring it into the PUD, we have a good opportunity to do that. It would be a negotiated opportunity. It wouldn't be one that we would be able to, I guess, unilaterally say this is what we want and have some sort of approval we could withhold until that happened.
And if they built regular subdivision style lots, then we wouldn't have an issue with the 20-foot setback because they would.
It depends what zoning category you give it zoned to, because this one for garden home says 20 foot. I think others may have 20 foot. I don't know. We'd have to look
I'm saying that this piece of land does not have to be garden home, correct? They want it to be garden home.
If you declined it and said no today, you'd come back with something besides garden home, then I guess that's a possibility. That's not, I guess, what they're asking for, but if you declined it and say that's just not what you see there, then I guess the message would be to come back with something different.
Thanks, Bobby.
Joe's a question as a follow-up to that. Within our subdivision ordinance right now, what is the minimum setback for a 60-foot lot?
The setbacks are provided in our zoning ordinance, and it would depend on what specific district it is. It's 25 feet for the somewhat similar to the 60-foot wide zoning district, which is our single-family residential district.
Okay. And this is the first of 2 readings. Is that correct? So this would need to get approved 2 times?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you, Joes. Council,
and I just wanted to also add, we already have a section that in Meridiana is developed with these standards. And the amendment to the Meridiana PUD was done, I believe, in April 2024, when some of these provisions were put in place.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to next, is we've already approved this in the past. We approved this as a part of the Haddock property, the Haddock Pond being brought in. So we've already done this. We've already approved the 20-foot setbacks. We've done all of those things. It's this council that's approved that in 2024, April of 2024. I think all of us were on here except for two council members. So it's not like this is out of completely left field. Okay. Councilman Bonner?
Yeah, just one last comment. I mean, I'm not against changing the zoning because I think we're going to have to, decisions were made back that we can't go in and change. I would hope that Meridiana has been Meridiana has been a good partner, I think, with the city in doing some stuff. So all I would ask is at the next stage, we at least entertain the negotiation part about maybe we can't change the setback, maybe we can get a little bit more street width, maybe we can do something, but just that, and I think they would entertain sitting down and talking about that at that time.
Well, what we could do there, Councilman Bonner, is this is the first of 2 readings. So even if this gets approved tonight, we could ask them, we still have that negotiation, and to Bobby's point, we have that leverage before the second reading. Okay, Meridiana, what compromises will you give us to get this approved at the second reading regarding either, giving us that 28 feet or doing the 25-foot setback for the garages? Okay. Council, any other comments or questions or statements that you guys would like to make? Okay. Do I have a motion for this agenda item, Council?
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve from Councilman Bonner, a second from Mayor Pro Tem. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously 7-0 for the first of 2 readings. Dan and Joes, if you can please make sure that these comments get back to the developer. We'll be looking forward to an update from them before the second reading, which will be at our next meeting. Just because it was unanimous tonight does not mean that it will be unanimous then. All right, thank you, everyone. Council, what I would like to do, we discussed these 2 items during our workshop, agenda item number 4 and 5. I would like to combine these together if you guys are good with that. As these are, okay. So I'll read both of these off. This is consideration of possible action to approve and authorize the mayor to execute the development agreement, and consideration of possible action to approve Oakwood Trails Master Plan. These are 2 items that we discussed during the workshop. The favorable recommendation, unanimous favorable recommendation from PD&Z on both items. Do we have any comments or questions for staff about these 2 agenda items?
Number 5 would be a conditional approval, I believe?
Yes.
Okay.
That is right.
Yes, so whoever makes the motion, please make a motion with the conditions as stated. Hearing no questions and/or comments, do I have a motion for these 2 agenda items? We have with the conditions?
With the conditions.
We have a motion with the conditions from the Mayor Pro Tem. Do I have a second? We have a second from Councilmember Roby Robinson. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously 7-0. We appreciate PD&Z's work on actually these past 3 agenda items. Next, we will move on to agenda item number 6. This is development update provided by the Department of Development Services. Joes?
So this, again, it's something that we had started recently, like for the Planning, Development, and Zoning Commission. Every second meeting, we give them an update of some of the pre-development meetings we've had, some of the certificate of occupancies that were approved, and some of the commercial construction of ground-up construction projects, and any other updates related to the department. So this time around, we have 3 pre-development meetings that we've had. One was with the car dealership on the Del Bello tract, for which a PUD was recently approved. We had a pre-development meeting for a retail development. And in the packet, some of the renderings for that is included. That's supposed to be part of that Pomona development. It's at the intersection of County Road 58, Croy Road, and Jerusalem Road. Then at the intersection of County Road 48 and Highway 6, we met with a group that is wanting to do a gas station and convenience store. And this property is within the Manvel Town Center PUD, and they do have an allowance for that project. In terms of certificate of occupancy approval, we issued a certificate of occupancy for Reliable Car Care, which is on Highway 6 further down. And in terms of commercial construction approvals, we have approval for the Sherwin-Williams project, which is on at 7310 Corporate Drive, which is next to Brisa's Mexican restaurant. Those are the updates we have for this meeting.
Appreciate you, Joes. Any questions or comments from the council?
Yeah, which one of the development deals was the first two pictures that are on the?
So the pictures are all that we received for the second project, which is the retail development at the intersection of County Road 58 and Jerusalem Road.
So these pictures are which ones you said?
The concept.
The concept.
The concept drawings. This was provided when they scheduled the meeting for us.
Okay.
And again, I always mention to our commission that we're just letting you know that we met with these groups for proposed projects, but a lot of these projects, I shouldn't say a lot of these, but it's not a guaranteed project. Some projects happen, some meetings are scheduled by the potential buyers who may decide not to buy, so. But these are the three that we met, and some meetings we don't get any renderings, but whenever we get any information that we can include, we'll start including them. So these were the concept renderings that was provided for that retail development as part of Pomona. It
Can you
should
give me an idea where Jerusalem Road is? Because I'm not familiar with it.
So it's almost at the edge. Let me bring it up. It's Croy and...
It's off County Road 58.
Yeah, so it's County Road 58, and then Jerusalem goes north.
It's kind of right past Pomona.
I'm sorry?
It's like right by Pomona.
Oh, okay.
It's right where I think we have the commercial allowance for Pomona, right?
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you for that update, Joes. One question I have, I'm sorry I had to step out. You might have covered it. The gas station and convenience store at 48 and Highway 6, is that the Tractor Supply?
Well, I'm not 100% sure if it is that. What the group we met with was for a gas station and convenience store. I don't think it was the Tractor Supply.
Okay. I know that Jerry, before he passed, was looking at doing a convenience store up at the front and a Tractor Supply behind, and he had come before council, and I know Councilman Hudson expressed excitement about that, but with his passing.
And I had the exact same question when this came up, but I don't think it was expressed as it's going to be Tractor Supply, but it is possible. I don't want to lie. I can figure out and get back with you if we have any evidence that it's Tractor Supply.
Well, I'm glad that you don't want to lie. I appreciate that, Joe. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Yeah, if you could just keep us updated. I love that you do these development updates. I know you give them to PD&Z as well, which is great. So if you could just let us know about that, that would be awesome. Council, any comments or questions regarding this agenda item? No? Okay. Thank you, Joes. We'll now move on to agenda item number 7. This is consideration and possible action to approve Resolution 2025-R-11. I believe this one, we will be turning it over to Ms. Shauna. Dan, if you want to introduce this for us while Ms. Shauna makes her way forward.
Sure, and I guess there are two components to this update on our schedule of fees. So one is the stuff that Sean is going to talk about, and then Joe's, I think we're talking about the new permit associated with the tree preservation too, correct?
That's correct.
Good evening, council, and welcome to our new council member. Happy to have you.
Hey, Sean, if you could pull the microphone down a little bit so we could, yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
To look over the changes. It does not look anything like it did the first time, and I hope that helps a lot because that first one was kind of scary. But this one is simplified, and it's actually doing the job of streamlining and making it a simpler process. So if you guys have that, the changes are made in red. Some of them are just simply giving a definition. We had a lot of things that were just out there. So now it says per tank or per event, or it lists where it said you could be charged this fee per device. It actually lists those devices for the permit fee. Not a whole lot of changes to the actual fees, and the ones that have been changed were kind of just more made to simplify, especially for the construction permits, where those were pretty confusing because at the end of those permits, you had to come up with 50% as your plan review fee. And that was being miscalculated a lot or missed completely a lot, both by the permit techs and both by the contractors. It was a very confusing process. And it's now been simplified to one flat fee for those permits, and then whatever your additional devices are. So it basically just made it a lot easier for everybody to follow. Didn't know if you had any.
Okay. Council, do you guys have any questions or comments for our fire marshal? So I have, is there anything else that you wanted to share, or?
No, the only other thing that was added was the language on that last page is where that we have the option, we're going to do the double permit fees, and that's always been there, but I just wanted to make sure that the citations, that there could be a citation that's going to be based upon pretty much how egregious the violations are, but those are also considered fees because they're Class C misdemeanors, so you are going to have a fine with that, and I didn't want that to surprise someone. So that's
Great.
it.
So a few comments and questions. I like the approach of the flat fee instead of the percentage. It gives people an expectation of what to expect. I like the reinspection approach. I want to hone in on the burn permits because we have a lot of acreage folks. 70% of Manvel is still considered undeveloped. It looks like there's a new fee here that you're doing for a prescribed burn, and you're setting that fee at $400.
So the prescribed burn was mentioned, and it was on here, but it just says that there's a site inspection. It was mentioned, but it was never, the fee, I don't believe, was there before. And so that's all I did was add the fee to the prescribed burn.
Okay, where did that $400 fee come from?
That's what I did was a comparison to other departments that were comparable to our department, and that's the fee that was charged for the prescribed burns.
Okay, how much time would you say that it usually would take someone within your position to do an inspection, site inspection for a prescribed burn?
It just depends on how large the area is, and what the prescribed burn is that's to take something back to its natural state. So it's a pretty big process to do that. It's also a pretty big open burn where that burn is purposely being set in different areas, and it's going to last, it won't be over in a couple of days for the most part. If you're really doing it, it's like if you have a nature preserve and you're going to have to burn off to take that back to its state. So it's just going to depend on how big it is. But there's a lot of TCEQ requirements that have to be reviewed and approved before we can say, yes, you can do this type of burn.
So is $400 enough then?
I believe so, yes. And in comparison to some that I've done in the past and some that I've compared to, I believe $400 is a good amount.
Because one of the things that I want to make sure we have the mindset of is not just comparing it to what other cities have, but what's the actual data that backs this up. The state has very much taken an approach with anything regarding fees that it's not just a percentage, but it's actually what is the quantitative data, that's my word that I'm using tonight, that says this is exactly what it costs. Because let's say it takes you half a day or it takes you a full day to do that inspection. That's a lot more than $400 your time is. And so my concern would be that just setting it at $400 and not doing it based off if it's 1 acre, 10 acres, or 50. If you have to do a 50 or 1,000 acre site inspection. They're only paying $400 for that?
Right, and the thing about that is, it's going to be more into the review. We'll spend more time on the review of that and making sure that they are meeting the TCEQ requirements than we will on the inspection of that acreage. Once everything is set up, it's a check and balance. So if it's,
And we might not have this type of burn often.
Correct, and I don't have any record of us having one ever, actually. It was just already on the schedule. I did not mess with anything that was already on the schedule.
Okay.
I learned.
So, so kind of taking the same mindset and going into the actual burn permit, we're increasing the cost from $10 to $15.
Yes.
What is the data that backs up why we should be charging $5 more?
So currently, the way the burn permits are issued, it expires in December, or it did. At some point, that changed, and that change isn't documented in the same place. So it was part of the fee schedule, then it was taken out of the fee schedule, and it was never changed. It just stayed that December 31st. So if I apply for a permit November 3rd, and then I burn, but I need to burn again at January 1st, I'm paying $30 for a burn permit. And I'm getting 2 inspections. Where if I pay the $25, that is an annual inspection. It's a calendar, month-to-month calendar inspection. So if I applied for it November 3rd, 2025, November 3rd, 2026 is when it expires. I have 1 inspection, unless there's a complaint or anything like that. And so for a lot of people, they've been doing this a long time. I can't tell you how many times I've heard, I've burned for 20, 30 years. We've been doing this. Okay, let us take a good look at it. Let's make sure all the requirements are met, and we're done. And it really does save. It makes it equal for everybody that's, participating in burns, and we do have a lot. And so it just kind of evens the playing field. If I'm going to burn once or if I'm going to burn several times, it's plus the paperwork, your drive out, all of that has been considered. So with these inspections.
I love the approach to having it be the 12 months instead of just ending at the calendar year. To go to the increase from $10 to $15, what data justified that $5 increase?
So that's going to be one. It's going to be the inspections that we are doing. It's the paperwork that that we're using. We're actually issuing a permit. There's a software system that we're using, and then the inspector themselves. So when we talk about the cost for an inspector to go, then there's your drive out there. Some of these places they're not right next door to each other. They're, 5, 10, 20 acres of land. And so we're driving to and from these. Of course, our fuel prices have increased. So all of those things were put into consideration from going. And I think it's a really small amount. I know it's a shock, like people don't like change, but I think we can justify with the fact that we have more personnel, we're meeting the requirements quicker, because you can sometimes get your same-day inspection. And, because we now have the resources, we have an inspector now that we can afford to keep on staff, for an extra $5.
Okay. Well, to some of our acreage living folks, what do you guys think about that increase in that fee from $10 to $15? Is it?
I thought it was from 15.
It's to 25, yes, so it's a $10.
Oh, 50, okay, so I put here 15, but it's 15 to 25, so it's a $10, okay.
Correct. Yeah, so it's going to help. What I have is with the operational costs associated with processing, reviewing, inspecting, and then issuing the burn permits. And as we continue to grow, we're going to get more and more burn permits, so.
Are you guys, the acreage folks, you guys comfortable with that increase?
I like that approach, but did y'all consider possibly prorating to get everybody, let's say someone does come in October, and instead of having everybody on their own different calendar system, if everybody was, that person that comes in for October, if they're prorated for 2 months, add it to the next year or whatever else, but then you still have everybody on the same calendar date.
And the thing is, we don't want everybody on the same calendar date. We are growing so fast. We have so many inspections. Yes.
Okay.
So we really like the idea of having to go out at different times and not having them all at the same time. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
You guys have no issues with it? Okay. Do we do any burn permit inspections for ETJ? Or is it just
we do
city
not.
limits? Okay.
Only within the city.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you for answering all those questions for me. I appreciate that. Any other council comments? So we'll go Councilman Hudson, and then we'll go Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I like the calendar year. That would help a whole lot.
Mayor Pro Tem?
This is an off-the-wall question, and it's in black letters, so my eyes weren't supposed to see it. However, why do we need a fingerprint fee?
Where in the world did you find a fingerprint?
It's on your
fee?
schedule here.
Oh, here we go.
I told you, my eyes weren't supposed to find it.
What page? What page,
It's under,
Crystal?
I think it's, Chief's looking at me. I think it's under the burglar, or the fire permit, and it's $5 for the residents and $10 for non-residents.
I don't believe that's on, I don't believe that one's on ours.
Is
Is it?
You found it? You can do control.
If it's page 8, it's further than we stop at page.
It's on page.
5.
Right here. It's on, I forget which one. of
So I
the-
think it's on our fee schedule.
But it's not-
what we're
Schedule.
updating tonight. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's a police
It's
fee?
under the alarms permitted through Manvel Police Department.
Oh, be careful talking about alarms.
Yeah, I was straying away
I
from that.
know, we don't want to trigger Councilman Obliger. But can we get just an update on why we charge for fingerprints?
That would have
If I
to
get
be.
booked, you're going to charge me $5?
No, the fingerprint fee is for when people come in to get their fingerprints taken for, such as school teachers coming in for job applicants, for
Okay, for
adoption
background
purposes, and such as that. It's for something outside beyond the scope of
What we provide as services.
providing, well, outside of being arrested.
Okay.
So it's somebody that is coming in. We don't get too many of those anymore because there's a company out there that does the fingerprints and does the background checks. Normally, we would do the fingerprints, they would send them into DPS for background checks, but there's a company now, it's,
So is this something like when you get global entry and you have to go to a partner and they've got to fingerprint you? Is that something like what it is?
it's kind of like a, I'm sorry, I didn't
Like a
understand.
partnership with like the services with the U.S. government when you
Yes.
need to apply for
Yes.
TSA or global entry and they need you to show up and,
Passports or something
All
like
that good
that.
stuff.
It's correct,
so that's why that's there.
correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you.
Any other council comments and/or questions? Okay, hearing,
Solicitor permits, do you think?
We're opening up.
so, all right. This will be our last question here as it relates to non-fire safety. No, it's okay. Chief, this would be underneath you. Solicitor permits, do we have a lot of people that come in and actually pull those permits, or do they just lie to us and say, my manager has it? I'll be honest, I've been a Karen. I've asked the people if they've got their permits.
Well, that was kind of what I was wondering, because I've asked before, and somebody said I don't have to carry that. I really don't know what the ordinance
It really depends on what they're doing. If they're actually selling a product, when they come to your door, they have to have a permit, or if they're taking orders for a product. If they're just coming to your door like Center Point or something to talk to you, no, you do not. So it's very specific in what they're doing. If it's interstate commerce or intrastate commerce, it gets very religious activities or something of that nature. So it's always good to have the no solicitor permit on your door or out there somewhere. If you don't want to talk to them, that's the best way of doing it. But as far as how many come in, I really couldn't tell you because that is through the permit department. We do get calls on them and we do go out and we do respond and check.
Yeah, because the latest, some news reports are talking about some of the scams happening by solicitor type people. So that's why we want-
A lot of the solicitors that come through are for like your, the biggest one here lately was for the solar panels, for the energy people and stuff like that. So it usually happens in the summertime. We hadn't really had any that I know of, any reports of solicitors. But the best thing to do is someone comes along and you ask for a permit, and they don't provide a permit, just call, we can come check them out and just see if they actually need one or not.
Thank you, Councilman.
Last question, but it's not. It's on this.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem.
It's on topic. On the energy charging station, is that for gasoline stations that are going electric, or is that for homeowners that buy Teslas?
Actually, that is a facility or plant that has,
Okay.
yeah, the charging. There is one for the vehicles and for the electric charging stations that was not there before because it just wasn't common. We didn't need it. Now it is, because not only do you find them at fuel stations, you find them at retail outlets gives me a little extra more time to, my car's charging, so let me stay and shop a little bit longer. That's what retailers are doing now.
Okay.
So that's the reason why we added it, because it wasn't really prominent, and now it is.
And so it's a one-time $100?
That is
them?
for the construction, so that's when they're installing it.
Okay.
There will be an annual fee for the inspection of it annually,
Okay.
and I believe that one may be $100.
But we're not at the point where this has to happen residentially, right?
No, we do not have any enforcement over.
Just clarifying that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
All done.
City Manager?
Mayor, just one thing we noticed on Exhibit A of the resolution itself on page 5, there is still a reference to the residential burn permit of $15. So we'd ask you to strike that from this, I guess, we're only going to do this one time, right, since it's a resolution. So if you can make that motion.
So where
part of your
is
motion.
that at?
On page 5, go under annual permits, expire on December 31st each year, and go down about 5 where it says burn, parentheses, residential.
It's above that fingerprint fee.
It's
I see right there, okay.
the 9-page document. If y'all could just remove that completely.
Yeah, so what we'll do that right now, Council. I'd like to make a motion to amend the fee schedule on page 5 to strike out the residential burn permit for $15. We have a second from the Mayor Pro Tem on this amending motion. Do I have, all those in favor for the amendment? All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously 7-0 to amend. Thank you, Dan, for bringing that up.
That was Tammy.
Oh, Tammy, thank you for bringing that up. Any other questions or comments from council? No. Well, I do, yep, we're going to head there next. Joe's, I think you wanted to speak to the tree preservation piece of this. Thank you, Shauna. Appreciate all that information. You do a great job, you and your team. Just keep up the good work.
Thank you, appreciate it.
So on the development services side, we are adding a new permit and a new permit fee based on the recent adoption of the tree preservation ordinance, which requires a tree removal permit in certain cases when a protected tree is removed. And we are recommending the tree removal permit fee to be $50 per protected tree or $750, whichever is less, which means like up to 15 trees, it'll be $50 per tree, and more than 15 trees, it would be at $750.
Okay, thank you, Joe's. Comments or questions about that, council? Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you. So, just so I understand this right, this is a fee for them to, if they want to cut down a tree?
A protected tree.
A protected tree, which we
Approved based on that ordinance amendment. And this would, there were several exemptions and exceptions where a permit is not required. However, a tree beyond a certain size, and there are certain criteria, we can pick it up and read again. But if it meets the criteria where a tree removal permit is needed, then the tree removal permit would be based on $50 per tree.
So what this is saying is that if they want to remove the tree, they can. They just have to pay $50 if it's an oak tree or a pecan tree or an elm.
For the permit. And if the permit is approved, then they can remove the tree. If the permit is not approved, they can appeal that decision to the council.
Okay.
All right, we'll go Councilman Bonner, then Councilman Lands.
That's only on acreage over, how many acres?
I think 20 acres for residential, if that's what you're talking about.
So the
And
average residential person, this doesn't even apply to them.
wouldn't apply. It would only apply to situations where a tree removal permit is warranted and required. So, correct.
Good question there, Councilman. And I think Councilman Lands, you were going to ask that as well?
That was the same thing, but also they have to do a replacement, do the replacement program for developers.
Correct. And that would be part of that whole permit review and approval process.
Thank you.
Joe's a clarification question. So this has the protected trees, the 4 types, but also if there's another tree type that reaches the certain width or the certain height, and it's not one of these 4, it would still be considered a protected tree.
Not in all situations. So the protected status is based on those species and the sizes, but then there are also certain situations like the buffer area. So if there's a residential and commercial, there are existing trees irrespective of the species and size, if it is performing as a buffer, or if there is a tree which is in place on a commercial property to meet the minimum landscaping standards, those kind of trees, they can be removed only with a tree removal permit based on the tree removal criteria that was adopted as part of that ordinance.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Jez. Any other council comments, questions? No?
Yeah.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem?
Where did we come up with this fee schedule? And I guess I'm struggling with the protected trees, or you can take down 15 or 100 and just pay $750. I'm struggling with that.
We struggled a lot too. So we, just like Shauna explained, one of the approaches for us to review what some of the other cities are doing. So we looked at Alvin, we looked at some of the other cities in the Texas
but
area.
they don't have people like us that really want to protect our trees, i.e. people in the audience and council.
Absolutely. And so we've looked at that, and we've also looked at our council's approach in the past, where the desire was to limit the burden on residents who would need to remove the trees and keep the fee at a minimum. And based on all of that, and this is the first initiative that we are having in City of Manvel. So taking a baby step approach, we looked at keeping the $50 amount based on all of these things that we considered. And then if we get to a point where there's a lot of permit applications and we feel that the amount needs to be changed, we thought we would come back to the council to revisit the fee based on what we see how it goes. But like the tree removal permit should not be looked at or understood as like a free-for-all, hey, go cut your protected tree. There's going to be a application process, a review process, specific criteria based on which it will be reviewed to see if it can be allowed to be removed, and then the permit will be issued.
I love all of that. I'm struggling with, I said I love all of that. I'm struggling with the 15 or more. In other words, you get a good deal if you cut down 50 trees. You only pay $750. Or if you cut down 15 trees. In other words, to me, it looks like we're incentivizing you to go ahead and cut down more, because the more the merrier. And I'm struggling with that. I really am.
So the idea of limiting, like, not to exceed $750 was based on, like, the effort needed to review it. Beyond a certain threshold, it's not time intensive, and it's the same amount of effort for us to review because the way tree surveys are put in, and that was one of the reasons, because you'll have your tree surveys in a table format, and it doesn't get any more work intensive. To be honest.
On the administrative side?
On the administrative side, the processing side, the review side.
The idea is to protect the trees, not value it versus how much effort it takes us, whether the job that it takes to process this and get this through. For me, it's more of, it's a fee to discourage you from cutting down these protected species. I don't like the way it's written. I'm just gonna not say that. I don't like it. I think we need to revisit it.
So what we could do, Mayor Pro Tem, kind of present this out there. I think, Dan, you had something, just say, hey, regardless of how many trees, it's $50 per tree, whether you do one, whether you do 500. I mean, that's going to be expensive.
Yeah, but this is saying, in other words, it's saying 15 or 500, you pay one lump sum of $700. I can't get behind that.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that would be an unintended consequence, certainly, that we weren't trying to make it easier, but obviously it would be even easier for all of us if we just do $50 a tree. I don't think is there anything in the ordinance that would prohibit that?
Yeah, so the protection of tree happens through the ordinance,
right?
And the ordinance has enough provisions to protect trees, and the review fee is based on, like the mayor said, the effort it takes to review and issue the permit. So the fee being 15 trees or or more, like 750 for no matter how much, doesn't guarantee that you'll be able to remove all 500 trees that you've applied for.
Understood.
So,
I think we need language to clarify that, though.
but like Dan was suggesting, if the council is open to $50 per protected tree, irrespective of how many number of trees is, we're fine with that.
Let's go,
I'm
Councilman.
still struggling, though, with, it's a protected tree, and we can take it down for $50. I just think we do need to look at how it's worded there. And I understand that it's protected within the ordinance, and they have to come before and get permission to remove the tree, and then it goes through a process based on what you said. I totally understand that. I think what Dan is saying is a great approach, possibly $50. I still think, I don't like the number.
So
I
are
don't
you
like
suggesting
$50
that?
a tree.
Okay.
And I
If-
don't like the 7, so I think we need to scrap that all the way. I'm sorry, the 15 or more for $750. I think we need to do away with that.
Councilman Bonner, do you have something you'd like to add?
What if this was tied, what if it was, I don't like the fact that you can cut down a 1-inch tree for $50 or a 25-inch tree for, what if it was tied to size? In other words, if I've got 14 1-inch trees that I want to tear down, versus 14 20-inch trees, shouldn't there be a difference in the price?
Well, like the tree preservation ordinance that we adopted doesn't require a tree removal permit for a 1-inch tree or a 2-inch tree.
Well, but there was, I just picked that number as a talking point. What's the minimum before the permit kicks in?
So I think it was a big size mature tree. So based on that, so our review process, the time taken, that wouldn't change so much with the dimensions, but that's an approach that a lot of cities have taken, and we can definitely look into that.
Because I agree, if we're talking about 8 or 10-inch trees, $50 isn't a deterrent.
Well, I think, let me ask us something real quick, Joes and Councilman. Are we thinking about this the right way? Because the fee schedule is to capture staff's time that is spent towards reviewing the permit. But it seems like council is wanting to use it as a deterrent to not even apply for the permit in the first place. And Bobby, I'm going to need you to weigh in here. Can we establish a fee price with the intention of it being a deterrent to even apply for a permit? Is that allowed?
Everything I read needs to be based somewhat on the cost of the actual providing the service.
Okay.
Inspection, and that's what's defensible, I guess, in a court, is some justification, like when you asked Shauna earlier about, how she arrived at these fees, that was perfect. She checked other jurisdictions, had an idea of how much time was put into it, this and that. And that, frankly, if we could do that for all of our fees, would be great, because that's kind of what it's supposed to be based on.
Okay. So, when Councilman Bonner, to what you're saying, I liked where your mindset was. If we structured around how are we making sure that we capture staff's time? And Joe's, what I hear you're saying is that if it's 15 or more trees, it doesn't really change staff's time for the review at that point, or does it?
It wouldn't, is what the whole idea is based on with what is being proposed. But again, we can go back, I'll be more than happy to go back to the drawing board, come back with multiple approaches and see what works for the council.
I think the deterrent is also, not only are they having to pay for the amount of trees they're taking out, but then they've got to replace based on the amount of trees and the size too. So it's not just the money that's a deterrent, it's how many they have to replace and that cost.
It's the ordinance, yeah.
And I don't think you can buy a 3 or a 4-inch tree for $50. I really don't think so.
And additionally, there is cost for a tree survey, for a survey to be prepared and submitted and all of that. So it's not just the permit fees.
Good comments, Councilman. Councilman Lands, do you have something?
Yeah, I'm not looking at this as the cost of staff to do the work for the paperwork. I'm looking at this totally as a deterrent to protect our trees, to protect the trees. And this is targeted. We know it's not the individual landowner, it's the developers coming in wanting to change the landscape of Manvel. I think we ought to add a 0 to these costs.
We can't.
I'll throw it out there.
We can't, Councilman.
Why
And
not?
while that's admirable, we have to do it based off of the cost of staff's time.
This
to
isn't
review the
about
permit.
staff. This is about the fee for cutting down a tree.
Yeah, and I think Bob.
Word it differently then. This is the fee for cutting down a historic tree in our town.
What we'd have to do, and the way I've seen other cities do it, is they've built that into the ordinance itself. What they say, City of Pearland does it. For every historic tree that you cut down, not only do you have to get a permit, but you also have to contribute to a tree fund. And you have to pay an arbitrary amount that they get to decide as council within that ordinance itself. So if we wanted to go that approach, which I'm not opposed to that approach, that would be built into the ordinance. We'd establish a fund through finance. They would then have to pay into it. We'd still want them to get a permit, and we still would need to cover staff's time. Because if we just arbitrarily add a zero, what's going to happen is the first developer that wants to come in is going to sue us. We're going to have tens of thousands of dollars that we have to pay in our defense, or we're just going to have to accept whatever they're suing us for. And I think, Bobby, that's what you're saying, is in order to defend fees for permits, it has to be based off of staff's time.
Correct. I mean, if it's on a fee schedule, that's what we're about. Now, if Dave wants to look at something different, like you just said, that's a perfect example of how it's not a permit fee at that point. It's something different. And if it's not part of the prohibition, I mean, the best thing you have if you don't want a historic tree to be done as a prohibition, you cannot. And if you do, you get a ticket and you go talk to the judge of municipal court with up to the maximum fine that the law will allow. But if there's something different, some sort of civil penalty or going into a fund like the mayor said, we would have to put that in the ordinance, so.
You tracking with that?
I'm tracking with that.
Okay. Yeah, because I think, and I actually like that approach, because the city of Pearland, they've built up millions of dollars from developers in this fund that they then pay out, and it allows the city to be able to plant more trees. So not only is the developer required to replace, not only does the developer have to go through the permit and the process, but then there's also a fund that's paid into that has helped Pearland beautify their landscape through more trees. And that's something I'd be more than happy to explore with you, Councilman, and looking at the ordinance for that. I don't know if that was explored. You guys worked as a part of that committee. Was that an idea that was presented at all during the?
We didn't get into
I
that.
don't remember thinking.
No, we didn't. No.
Councilman, we did talk about it, but early on, since this was the first time we were adopting a tree preservation ordinance, we chose not to take that route because it includes complications in terms of where do these plants go. I mean, if a tree was cut on the east side, can a replacement or whatever tree is being funded by the tree fund can it go on that side of the city? So a lot of places where we have that approach, they have park zones established. They have a lot of things that go ahead of that approach. So we did not explore that, but again, we can definitely revisit it if that's something that y'all want to consider.
What do you think, Councilman? You'd like to reconsider that aspect?
Why not? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. We were trying to get a tree ordinance in effect to stop the main problems we saw, not thinking about every aspect. So I think revisiting the ordinance to look at this deal is a good thing to do.
Okay. Manager Dan?
Yes, Mayor. I would say along those same lines, even if we do want to go back and look at those things, I would like to encourage us to adopt something tonight, because that development, whatever that development is, could come in, later on this week. And right now, we don't have the permit is $0, so to speak. So if we want to establish $50 per tree or whatever, if we get something on the books tonight, it goes into enforce tomorrow.
I'm thinking two separate deals. I have no problem
Absolutely.
with the fee schedule
Absolutely.
and then doing something with the ordinance that has more teeth in it.
Okay, well, it looks like the working group might be getting back together, get the band back together there to look at the ordinance for phase 2 already. We love our trees so much, we're already looking at it again. I like that. Mayor Pro Tem, I want to go back to what you were saying in regards to the fee, kind of knowing the conversation, we got to make it based off of staff's time. I know you really honed in on that $750 total. Are you fine with that? Would you like to see that changed?
I have a couple questions regarding that now. So if we're looking at it in the sense of, if a developer comes in and they're going to knock down 50 trees, this fee here is based on an inspection, a physical inspection. Who's counting the trees? What if it's like 60 acres and they have to count the trees. Is that like an estimate that's done? How do we come up with that? That's the first question I have. The second question is, are we only going to attach a fee to these protected species? Because there are other trees out there, obviously, and maybe they're not at the specific width or growth or years or whatever. So is this just a blanket? If we agree tonight that this is okay, are we saying that developers can come in and just get rid of any tree that's not in this protected class and not pay a fee?
Correct.
And who would determine that?
The city council has already determined that based on the ordinances we have.
I'm sorry, who's going to inspect it to determine if those trees are protected or not?
So since the ordinance has been adopted, they have to submit a tree survey showing all the existing trees, the trees that will be removed, trees that will be protected.
Okay.
And that's the process for which we are having this permit. And then staff will review, and we have since the ordinance was just adopted, some of the nuts and bolts of it we are still working on. It'll have a review process based on which there'll be an inspection that'll be triggered if it is approved. There'll be a photographic evidence requirement which is embedded in the ordinance that they'll submit. Based on all of that, the review is done, and it triggers inspection and just goes on. Some of the details we still have to figure out, but this would be one of the first steps, establishing a fee for the permit. To answer your second question, the city council, when we adopted the ordinance, decided that there are these certain trees which will be protected. There are whatever other trees can be removed without a permit. So if that's what you were asking.
Okay, yes. Okay, so we're only going to charge a fee, which now makes me think, if we're doing this to protect these species and we're trying to pass a fee schedule based on effort that our staff does, it's really no different than if it's a normal tree or a protected species that we put in the ordinance. So it's kind of like a catch-22, because we're charging a fee, but only if you cut down these trees, but not if you cut down any other tree. So what's the purpose of the fee schedule anyway? It's a deterrent. Right? If you're charging a fee based on a protected species, but you're not charging a fee on any other tree, then why even charge the fee? What's the purpose of the fee?
The ordinance we worked on wasn't about fees.
No, I understand that. My point is, why charge a fee? Why charge it if you're not going to charge it for all the trees? That's where my brain is going. Why are we charging a fee only for these? What's the purpose of it? If it's going to require the same amount of work, whether it's a protected species or not, right? It still requires effort, no matter what the type of tree is.
No.
How not?
So in case of a tree that is not protected, which doesn't meet those requirements, a permit is not required. Those trees can be cleared, removed, based on the ordinance that was adopted. However, if there is a property where the situations could be different. It could be a situation where somebody has, say, like 20 individual who owns 21 acres. It has multiple trees, and one of the trees out of all the trees happens to be a protected tree. And if they need to remove it, they have to apply for that permit. If they remove it without a permit and code enforcement or inspections is able to get to it, there is a double fee. There would be a double fee. There would be a replacement requirement, multiple things that they would need to do. However, if it's a tree that does not fall under this category, which commonly we say trash tree and tree that is not mature enough, that gets to that threshold of protection, based on the ordinance that we have, a permit is not required. So we are not even reviewing anything. We are not putting in any effort for which a fee needs to be charged. However, if a protected tree is being removed, there is a process where an application will be submitted, a tree survey, which is again something that could be expensive, has to be submitted. Staff reviews it. But again, the submittal of the application doesn't guarantee the permit. It'll be reviewed based on all the provisions of the ordinance, and then some trees may be allowed to be removed, some trees may not be allowed to be removed. The permit may be approved or not approved, and depending on what happens to the permit, they can, if it's not approved, they may come and petition to the council to reconsider the decision.
I understand that. Thank you for that explanation. I don't see the value of charging a fee for this if we're not going to charge it for everything. What's the point of it? It ultimately boils down to the deterrent based on our ordinance.
Of course, and I get your point if you're looking at it from the deterrent point of view, like the mayor said. However, the fees is based on the fact that when somebody brings in the permit, there is cost on the city for reviewing it, processing it, and it's in a way recouping that fee. But on a tree that is not protected, that's not happening, so there's
Trash tree, who cares? Go
there's
ahead,
no
get rid of it.
recouping of that cost.
So
that's
what you're saying, Joe, is as the summary is you're saying, if I'm a developer Bob, wants to come in and develop on 50 acres of land, and they have some protected trees, but they're like, you know what, we are not going to tear down those protected trees. We're keeping those. But there's a lot of shrubbery and there's a lot of trash trees, as they're otherwise called. We're going to cut those down because we need to clear the land for the development. But I'm keeping the protected trees. They don't have to go through a permit. They don't have to go through all of those steps because they're not touching the protected trees. This is only triggered if they say that they want to touch a protected tree. And that's triggered because of how we define things within the ordinance, which is saying this now triggers that process because you want to touch one of these trees.
Correct. And even if they're, since we have this tree preservation ordinance, even if they're not touching a protected tree, for example, when they submit their plans for development, they'll be required to include the tree survey, which shows the existing trees, which would be protected, which would be preserved, which would be removed. And as part of their development plans, if they need to avail the tree credits for protection, they'll have to show how they will protect it during the construction process. Even for that, there's a provision in the ordinance which says you have to have a minimum of A, B, C, D in order to get those credits. So, but that happens as part of the site development review process if they're not removing it. But if they need to remove a tree, it's a separate permit process which is included where, depending on the number of trees, a fee is charged.
So to the Mayor Pro Tem's point, have we updated our fee schedule to account for the additional review of what you just mentioned?
No, it'll be part of that entire site plan package, and since we have a separate tree removal permit, if there is a removal, it's a separate process. If there's no removal, it's just taking a look at the survey approved by a landscape architect or stamped by an arborist, which calls out the existing trees. It's not significantly additional work reviewing it as part of that site plan review process.
So is there a trust and verify process? Are we sending a drone on site, or are we doing anything to verify that what the developer is telling us is accurate?
So we will have to have photographs included as part of that tree surveys, and I think the ordinance does include that language. And since, again, it's new, we'll have to come up with the nuts and bolts of those processes to make sure we're not missing anything. Right now, we don't have a whole lot of things on paper. It's still in the process. Like this permit fee would be one of the first steps towards
I think what you're saying, Joe, and Mayor Pro Tem, to some of what you're getting of, there's a lot of eyes on this from council, and this is the first time in the history of the city that we've done something like this, and there's going to be opportunities to build and improve on it. And now that the working group's going to get back together for round two, just kind of taking a step back and taking a look at it to make sure items like that are covered is key. And you don't know what you don't know either. The first time that somebody goes through this process, a developer comes in and goes through it, I guess, would this tree requirement for the Oakwood trails that we approved earlier, would they have to do this new process?
Yes, that is correct.
So they'll be the first one to go through and do this new process then?
From a master plan development standpoint, yes.
Okay, so that there are a trial dummy right there to see how it goes. Okay. Anything else, Mayor Pro Tem?
No.
Okay. All right, any other?
Thank you for that very lengthy explanation multiple times.
Sorry about that.
No, she's appreciative of
I'm
it.
very appreciative of it. I need it. Thank you.
All right, any other comments or questions from council?
Yes, I think he wanted us to decide if this number is a good number and if we're happy with this number, because we should adopt a schedule.
Yep. So we do have an amended item in front of us. Council, if we're good with this, we can make a motion for the entire resolution as amended, unless you guys would like to see an amendment to these dollar amounts right now. Okay. So council, I think we keep it as is for now, but we'll be taking a look at things and seeing what improvements can be made. Okay. Council, do I have a motion for this agenda item, this resolution as amended? All right, we have a motion from Councilman Lands, a second from Councilman Bonner. All those in favor? All those opposed? All right, motion passes unanimously 7-0. We look forward to seeing what the working group comes back forward here soon. So appreciate everyone's efforts on that. Good questions there too. Dan, are you good if we combine items 8 and 9 together, or would you like to highlight those separately?
I think we're good.
Okay, so I'll read both of them off now. Council, are you guys good with 8 and 9 being together? There are 2 grants there. So we have agenda item number 8, consideration and possible action to approve resolution 2025-R-12. And agenda item number 9 is consideration and possible action to approve resolution 2025-R-13. Staff, turn this over to you guys.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. So both of these are grant opportunities with the state, one of them with Texas Parks and Wildlife, and the other with TxDOT. I'm just really excited that our team was able to find these grants, especially, I guess, we had Jorge and Rosie go to a workshop, I guess, on the Texas Parks and Wildlife one. And what we're hoping that can help out with is the City Hall Park. I'm just going to keep calling that till we have an official name. But correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a 50-50 grant up to $1.5 million. So there's $750,000. Well, all $1.5 million could be used for those different amenities that we talked about, that the Parks Recommendation Board came up with. So that could be the playground equipment, the trails, the pavilion, the gazebo, all those different things. So we know that we need at least $1.5 million. So they would help out with one half of that. Our half, though, since we just purchased that property to the tune of about whatever we paid for it, I think it was about $600,000 total, we can actually apply that towards our $750 as sort of in kind. So then really we're only talking about $150 of actual dollars out of pocket. So very excited about that, but they need an actual resolution, right, to go to the next step from you. Rosie, I skipped through all the details, but is there anything else you want to fill in on that, or is that's the gist of it? And then the other one is something that Joe's and his team have been working on with TxDOT to look at some assistance on sidewalks. The original goal was to, I think, go down McCoy to Highway 6, back up Masters, and across on Lewis. We're trying to do the Lewis sidewalk as part of a separate project. So then we were just looking at the 3 roads, and I guess you've had some input from TxDOT. They want us to kind of pare that down a little bit because it's a big project, right?
Right. So this application was a 2-part process where we have a preliminary application, and after they do the initial review, they say if you're ready for the final application. So we cleared the preliminary step, and the whole reasoning was, and this grant requires a 20% match. We had the Lewis Lane project already being discussed in the pipeline. And so we thought we would have that loop. It would improve connectivity, schools, residential district, the commercials on Highway 6. And that was the scope on the preliminary. But when we had our initial discussions with TxDOT about the grant opportunity and the criteria that they used to review and the chances of being eligible based on the complexity of the project readiness, ability to finish the project, everything pointed like we might have to exclude Lewis and Highway 6 and focus on McCoy, Large, and Masters. So that's why we've adjusted that scope of work. Lewis primarily because there could be issues with right-of-way acquisition, and if we don't already have the right-of-way, it could be a negative for the consideration of the grant. And then Large, McCoy and Masters seem to be the logical connection based on the input we received. We're still in the process of fine-tuning the whole application, the cost estimates and all of that. We're getting great help and assistance from TxDOT staff, especially the regional office. We've had a few meetings with the staff members in the recent past to help us get there. So, yeah. We are hoping it works out and get it. Oh, just one more addition. The grant process also included an option for us to request TxDOT to be involved in the design and construction of either the entire project or a part of project. And we've made that request to see if it's something that they can help us with. So that's also under consideration.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. Anything else, Dan? No. Any comments or questions from council? Councilman Bonner?
What's the top end on the TxDOT grant? You said it was a 20% share, but is there a top end? Is it $1 million or?
I think the maximum, what I remember was, I think 20 million. I had that open right here, but I'm not able to find it.
I was just trying to figure out what our 20% would be.
So based on our general estimate, it looks like our 20% could be in the 600,000 range for the entire project, close to 700,000.
So that means TxDOT's contribution would be over $2 million?
Correct.
You good, Councilman?
But that's based on our preliminary cost estimate, and right now we are in conversation with TxDOT to help us refine that. We don't know if we've added way more stuff than we need to, or if we've missed anything. So that's something that we are working on right now.
Sounds good. Thanks, Joe. Any other comments or questions from council? Well, want to celebrate the work, Rosie, you and the team, Joe's, you and the team have done on these two items. I mean, obviously it takes money on our side. It takes the taxpayers' dollars to do this, but to be able to bring the money back into Manvel in the tune of, I mean, you're looking at potentially north of $3 million of money coming back into Manvel and having to expend potentially in the future less than $1 million. That's incredible. So good work for you guys on that. We appreciate that. Council, do I have a motion for these two agenda items?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, so we have a motion from Councilman Oplager for 8 and 9, and we have a second from Councilwoman Roby Robinson. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously 7-0. Last agenda item, a consideration of possible action on Almost Heaven Park as recommended by the Parks and Recreation Board. Who is presenting this one tonight? Is this you, Joe? You've held the floor tonight. You're doing well. You're doing good.
I'll just sort of open the discussion. So Almost Heaven Park is what you might think is, it may appear that it's part of the Sedona Lakes subdivision. Almost Heaven Park was actually there long before that subdivision came to be. It was actually an RV park back there for many years. And so when this was a very convoluted, very difficult arrangement to work out with the developer of Sedona Lakes and the county and the city. But by the time it was all said and done, Mayor Martin actually was able to secure Almost Heaven as a city park. So it's immediately north and east to Dolores Martin Park. Hopefully one day the two will be connected. That's the idea in the master plan. But the reason we wanted to bring this one up is because we talk about Croy Park a lot as our only existing park, and we sort of joke how it's actually in the ETJ, even though it's a city park. Almost Heaven's kind of in the same situation. And so there are some repairs that need to be done out there at Almost Heaven Park. What brought this to light most recently was we had a visit with Sedona Lakes. They want to do some park improvements, but not to this park. They want to basically create a park behind the wastewater treatment plant. And so we said, maybe there's an opportunity that we could partner where, some of these park improvements happened at the park that's right there. And just like we're talking about possibly partnering with the county for Dolores Martin Park, maybe it makes sense for some sort of partnership with Sedona Lakes on Almost Heaven Park. So as we're coming up into the budget season and all that kind of good stuff, this isn't a park that's, as far as I know, ever had any dollars associated with the maintenance. The trails are in pretty bad shape, and so we need to do some work out there. So we brought it to Parks Board, I guess a week or two ago, and they did have a recommendation. I'll hand you the baton now, Jose.
Yeah, and the recommendation was for staff to explore those options of partnerships to see what we can come up with and see how we can get to a memorandum of understanding to initiate some sort of partnership.
All right. Thank you, Jose. Thank you, Dan. Any comments or questions from council? Councilman Lands?
So right now, are we maintaining it? Is our crew, do they go out and mow or do anything out there?
So we actually just started mowing it. Yeah.
I genuinely think that most people don't realize, and quite frankly, maybe even some of our staff, maybe some of our council members, didn't even realize that that's a city park. So,
Councilman Lands, to your point, that was going to be the comment that I was going to have is if we're going to start investing serious dollars into it, the primary beneficiaries of this park, the city park, are the residents of Sedona Lakes. They don't pay any property tax dollars. Even when representatives from the MUD were here at the Parks Board meeting, they said that they love walking on it, and we certainly need to improve it. But I think there's an opportunity here to leverage our relationship, which they said that they would be open to either improving the park, whether they contribute financially to it as the MUD, since they don't pay property tax dollars, or if the work that they're going to do, which they mentioned, Mayor Pro Tem, they're going to have pickleball courts, making those as a financial contribution, making those open to the general public as an offset for all of the work that we're going to do at Almost Heaven, which they will be the primary beneficiaries of. The city hasn't kept up with this park. It needs a lot of love and TLC, and I know our parks team is going to do exactly that. They've, as you mentioned, Robbie, it sounds like they've started on that, which is great. But there's going to need to be a lot of work there over the next few years, and I'm in support of finding a way to partner with the MUD. They have dollars that are there. They have a high tax rate for Sedona Lakes, and so if we can partner with them and help them with their project, they help us with our project. Everybody benefits, so I'm in support of that. Councilman Bonner, I know you're the representative from council on the Parks Board. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm very much in favor of partnering with them. Most of the residents of Sedona Lakes thought that was their property anyway. They, like you say, they use it. I know a couple of people that use it pretty regular, the walking trails, and they've been complaining they've been talking lately about how bad the trail portion, and that was confirmed when we had, gosh, I can't think of his name, Brian, with the county. When he did his walkthroughs, he did that too and mentioned that. So I'm glad we're maintaining it. I think that'll help, and I'm in favor of partnering with them to see what we can come up with.
Any other comments, questions, council? So I believe you guys are looking for a motion on this item tonight? Okay. So I'll go ahead and make a motion to direct staff to proceed forward as recommended by the Parks and Recreation Board. Do I have a second? We have a second from Mayor Pro Tem. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously 7-0. Mayor and council comments. Any council comments tonight? Hearing none, just a few. Manvel Market is this Saturday, 10 to 2. It is going to be at Redeemer Church. They've moved locations there temporarily. Should be good weather, I think, last I saw, hopefully. The State of Education for Alvin ISD is happening on, Tammy, I believe it's Tuesday of next week. Chief, I want to give you and Shauna a shout out. I know you guys have been working hard over the past few days with Newport Lake Estates on access, fire, police, emergency access there, and some of the emails that we've probably received about that. So appreciate y'all's work. Want to give you a shout out. If you can just keep us up to date, that would be amazing. But thank you guys for paying attention to that. Definitely a concern if we can't get access to the community and there's an urgent need to get in there. So thank you guys for that. Also, just to let council know, we have reached out to TxDOT about having a town hall with them that we would host in regards to talking about 288 and plans for the future, especially as Alvin made the announcement of a 17,000 acre development around 1462. That's going to be a lot of traffic on 288. So we have reached out to TxDOT and we're going to start facilitating that where the community can come in. We'll try to live stream it, doing it here. And as we know more, we'll make sure to update council. Just wanted to make sure to keep you guys in the loop to let you know this is at the very early stages of talking with them, but Maria, the area engineer, expressed excitement about working with us on this, which was really good to hear. All right. Oh, and the pork chop. Yes. Dan, do we have an update on the pork chop?
When we met with them a week or two ago, they had just about completed their study, and it does look like they agree that it needs to come out. So that's good.
For those that don't know, the pork chop is when you turn, you're driving on 6 heading towards Alvin, and you need to turn onto Meridiana Parkway. There's this little odd curb cut that looks like a pork chop, and sometimes vehicles will hop it, 18-wheelers, buses, all of that. So fingers crossed we can get it removed soon. I can neither confirm nor deny that somebody offered to do it in the middle of the night, and the answer was thank you for that offer, but we cannot allow that to happen. So, all right, council, with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
We have a motion from Councilman Bonner. Do I have a second? Second from Councilman Hudson beat you to it. Second from Councilman Hudson. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously 7-0.